decade of gas and beyond. This two-day event convenes distinguished guests, regulators, pipeline professionals, engineers, academia, and stakeholders.
Nigeria's decade of gas represents a deliberate national effort to move from being a gas-endowed nation to a gas-driven economy.
The theme of the conference, Building a Robust Pipeline System for the Decade of Gas and Beyond, speaks directly to one of Nigeria's most critical infrastructure imperatives.
Additional focus areas include the technical reclassification of gas flaring as gas wastage for environmental degradation, digitalization for pipeline integrity, and strategies for achieving zero gas flaring by 2030 through pipeline gas capture and expansion technologies.
I therefore commend the organizers of this conference for providing this timely and critical platform that brings together policymakers, investors, industry experts, and innovators from Nigeria and sub-Saharan Africa.
Systems for the decade of gas and beyond. This two-day event convenes distinguished guests, regulators, pipeline professionals, engineers, academia, and stakeholders from around the world to share expert insights on technical challenges, regulatory frameworks, and innovative solutions for pipeline infrastructure. The conference program features intensive discussions on advancing pipeline materials and technology, complex projects including case studies from the Gulf of Guinea, capacity building in gas pipeline pre-commissioning, and recognizing pipelines as critical infrastructure vital for national development.
Of the engineering developments that have happened in the world, all around the world. I know you can look around this building we're in, the internet you're holding, the airplane you fly, the train stations. Please can somebody, do you have that thing? I just want to show something here, that a different perspective. Yes, could you go and progress to the next one? Now, I'm going to pick some of those things. These are some, if you like, engineering marvels, things that have intrigued us. And we all see them, you experience them, you have the phone in your hand, you have, you get on the plane and you do all these things. Look at it, look at even the development in health, in so many areas, transportation, bullet planes, the shuttle that goes to the air, the massive ships and all that. Now, this is another engineering marvel, a refinery, big project. And then if I go to the next further, I don't know if you can see this. This is a picture from the Dangote refinery. This is an engineering marvel. I can tell you, if you have an opportunity anytime to go towards that material, go and visit that place. The size of it, the complexity of it will marvel you. And you will come out with a lot of respect for all the people who have done it. That's why I have a lot of respect for Alhaji Aliko Dangote, a visionary par excellence for Nigeria. Now you can see this coal refinery. If you go there, you see this big, mighty, and everything. But there's something that you won't see and that you wouldn't know, but which is critical to the running of that mega complex. You hear all these things that go on the news. There's something you probably don't know, is the number of pipelines that make it happen. Now, you can see these are all the pipelines that were laid on that, for that project. You can see the bottom part here represents things that are offshore. And all these pipelines, they are channeled towards land. You know, the crude that comes into Dangote refinery today, it was designed for two ways. There is a large offshore pipeline that was planned, and I don't believe it's come into production yet. But at the moment, crude, even Nigerian crude, is being shipped to Dangote refinery. And how is it going? The ships and the tankers, they come on the lower part of that thing. They come out here, and there's about 25 kilometers of pipeline through which all that crude goes to the refinery. So there are about 9 pipelines that were laid from there to the mooring board, the single point moors. Now the point I'm making is, if any of this crude pipeline goes down, this whole big complex that I showed you grinds to a halt. And then there is the export. You heard probably that Dangote shipped fuel to US. They've got about 4 24-inch pipelines, 3 48-inch pipelines, and then there are interconnecting pipelines connecting the mooring boards. Over 100 kilometers of pipelines that feed this system. And that is not the end. There are many more pipelines that are being constructed. So, all of you that are pipeline professionals, the beautiful thing about our own engineering piece is that when we build it, it works best when nobody sees it. When you create your own engineering, it works best when nobody sees it. It's not the phone which everybody sees, the plane, the building, the refineries, the complexes like the hotel and everything, which everybody comes to say, okay, we build it. But when we build ours, when we build our work, it's best when nobody hears about it. So it stays underground. But these are great engineering projects too. If you think about the process that is involved, and there are so many that will talk about it, the process that is involved to get from concept to a pipeline that is working, it takes a long time. So, okay, I put this, you can ignore this. These are just a list of the pipelines on that Dangote refinery that you have there. Now, I've talked about this already. Our pipelines, our products, what we develop, very complex structures, complex engineering pieces. Because if you make a mistake, you can blow everybody up to pieces. So the engineering is complex, will take a long time. And now these systems are also very expensive. Very expensive. It takes anything from maybe $1 million. If you're looking at pipelines that are 12-inch and up, $1 million per kilometer, to anything that can go up to $10 million per kilometer to lay a pipeline on ground. And you can see the ones that are coming up in Nigeria now. We're talking about AKK. $2.8 billion with a B. Think about it. That's how much it costs. And then different people who are involved in it will tell you. So pipelines are very complex. They take time to build, they serve well, and they stay quietly and silently working, and that's how we like them. Until if something doesn't work, then everybody in the world realizes, oops, there's a pipeline there. But it's our job, and it's your job, to make sure that the pipelines operate quietly, silently, out of sight, but deliver. That is our own commitment. Our engineering masterpiece, we don't show it up, we don't blow it up, but we put it on the ground and hide it so that it works very well. Our association plan, which we're inviting all of you to be part of, to be involved, to help build, and to help sustain this engineering piece, which stays out of sight. If we don't talk about it, your work is buried on the ground and nobody gets to hear about it. But we have to bring them up and share the knowledge so that we can have a robust pipeline system and robust pipeline network for Nigeria. That is your mandate. That's your challenge. That's my challenge. So our association wants to promote professionalism, make sure that the best practices are applied. We promote, you can see, maintaining of standards, rules that everybody can work with to lead us to this whole robust network that we're talking about. We want to make pipeline issues visible. Pipelines are buried. But the issues are important because they impact everybody. We want to reach out to people who will have intention to intervene in pipelines and let them have the connection that a good pipeline system probably relates to the power supply that they have in their homes. And then we want to promote local expertise, promote our people so that we can be the ones running our pipeline systems. We do all kinds of activities, conferences like this one. This is one that we do, but we have webinars, symposium, visitations, training programs, and we want to grow this, we want to expand this, we want to build a network of people who are experts in the pipeline. So that is all I have for you as you come to this conference. I just want to let you know, be proud with what you're doing. People may not see it, but you're wonderful engineers and technical people, and continue the good work that you do. So let us build a robust pipeline system that will energize this country. I just want to welcome all of you. Thank you very much.
I'm supposed to be delivering this presentation on behalf of my GCEO, and who is unavailable as sent here today. And I hope it makes sense to us all. By way of going forward, being that I do not consider myself a very heavy person, so I don't think existing protocol will mind my standing on it. So I stand on existing protocol. I'm supposed to be delivering a presentation to you on turning domestic strength into global leadership. Turning domestic strength into global leadership. And we shall be looking at it from the lenses of oil salve. We'll look through the eyes of oil salve. Next slide. Okay, I actually can do the next slide from here. Okay. Yeah. So, it's okay, I'm seeing it from here. So, oil salve has been in operation for about 30 years now in the oil and gas industry of Nigeria. And that means we've built some resume in terms of job delivered. When you look at the portfolio of oil salve, you think of projects like 40 inches by 303 kilometers pipeline, which is ongoing. Hopefully by December, our bid will be done. You will think of projects like OB3, 48 inches by 64 kilometers with a 2 billion SCOF per day GTP. You also think of projects like EAGC, 128 kilometers by 18 inches pipelines. And of course, for the ANO Gas Company, currently trying to close out a 36 by 23 kilometer pipeline, 20 inches by 36 kilometer pipeline. What you see in our resume is basically that we don't just build pipelines, we deliver national strategic assets. The projects I've just mentioned forms, apart from the ANO gas project, forms a vital part of the national gas pipeline. And today we are very involved. You can see we are very involved in a good percentage of implementing that national gas pipelines. So this is our story. So, and you notice that it's all pipelines done within Nigeria. So that means it's a local story. So our conversation this morning is basically to talk about how we gravitate from this point to global relevance. And I'm sure that is the dream of every indigenous company, so that we can have something of what we are exporting to the world out there. If you want to take the whole of our pedigree, in retrospect, you will be speaking to 19 major projects of 933 kilometers of installed pipeline already done. You will be speaking to 76 projects of pipeline leak repairs done. You will be speaking to 28 above ground facilities in the gas and oil sector done. You'll be speaking to 18 HGDs executed, including the crossing of River Niger. That's in the course of doing pipelines also. You'll be thinking of 84 horizontal truss boring across various routes and rails. And then we also did at least one that is also currently running, O&M, operational and maintenance, for a 250 million scof capacity PRMS, which regulates up to 4 or 5 different pipelines somewhere in the hover. You think of pipeline security contracts already executed, and you also think of one environmental remediation. We're actively involved in the Ogoni re-entry. We've done one remediation project at least for high prep. So this is what you look at when you're talking of the OISA pedigree. So there's something, at least a little, that we have, a little relevant that we have locally. And then we are now going to share with us how this translates to something that goes global. Yeah, so before you talk of that, you're going to ask yourself, what do you have that you are exporting? If after 30 years in the industry, we do not have some meaningful and tangible pluses to export, then I wonder when we would. So some of those things we have done over 30 years that that gives us the courage to talk of exporting to the global. Global could mean Pan-Africa, it could mean outside Africa. We're talking of strategic projects. The projects I just mentioned to you that we did on EPCIC basis forms part of the critical gas assets for the nation, like I said. So that means we have some confidence that having traversed various terrains, in fact there's no terrain you traverse in pipeline construction that you don't traverse in Nigeria, be it the rocky terrain, the swamp, name it. So we have such experience there. So that's part of what we're going to export, because whatever is obtainable in other African countries, for instance, is no different from what you have in Nigeria. Technical expertise, mastery of complex projects. So you know when you start doing EPC projects, that's some complexity of its own, because you're taking it almost like turnkey. Okay, so we've done quite a lot of this. That's part of what we're going to export. We talk of local capacity and training. Yeah, you can't run such projects if you don't have well-trained staff and a system that thrives on continuous improvement. So that we have. Then we also look at operational excellence. Yeah, you cannot be doing projects for the likes of Shell, now Renaissance, NLNG, SNEPCO, Chevron and the rest of them, if you cannot deliver a total quality service. So operational excellence is part of what we're going to export to, and we have to export. Then you have a strategic structure. To do EPC projects, you must have a structure that speaks to a well-coordinated front. So it's not actually only you doing everything. It's like manufacturing a car. One company does not manufacture all the components. So you have to form some strategic alliances with other OEMs and the rest of them, okay, to deliver a product, which is the finished pipeline. So we have a system that have mastered operation in this mode. So that's the local expertise we have garnered over 30 years, and we're going to export. And the market we're exporting into, which is the Pan-African market or the global market, has some expectations. So if we're exporting, we now need to, that being for any company that want to transit or go through this route, you now need to ask yourself, yeah, in Nigeria, okay, you have seen complex local regulations, okay? So out there, you're going to be thinking about exporting expert navigation of international standards. So even though international standards is part of what you do here, but out there, it becomes prime. Then you talk of from challenging terrain and logistics, which you have here, to unmatched project resilience. So yeah, you're going to need the same terrain, but are you going to show continuous improvement on what you have achieved in Nigeria out there in terms of mastering the environment and taking the pipeline across it no matter what comes up. And the other one is in terms of local content mastery. That's what we have here in country. Out there, you're talking of superior cost optimization and community engagement. So with the quality of experience you've gathered executing project in Nigeria, now, I mean, how can you talk of, can you be able to metamorphosize into other communities elsewhere that you see? There are some communities that are more militant oriented than what you have in Nigeria, and know the peculiarities of those communities. So that's what the world out there expects when you're talking of transiting from the local to the global. Now, if this is what it speaks to in terms of transiting, this is what the market is expecting of you, this is what you have gathered, there's a bridge that tells you exactly what must be done to be able to move from local expertise to Pan-African leadership. First of all, we'll talk of operational excellence, lean processes, advanced tech, global certifications to compete on efficiency. So you ask your, that standardization now. You ask yourself, the way you do the business here, you have delivered the project. Have you been able to deliver it in such a way that if you go in that direction or you execute project in that manner out there, the world out there will be able to say, yes, that's proper execution. So we're talking about operational excellence. These are the things that we have to look into and are actually looking into because we have that ambition to go Pan-African or global. We also talk of strategic partnership. You know, we formed several alliances, like I mentioned, with OEMs, global tech firms, IOCs for market access and risk sharing, like what we are doing currently in Senegal and other countries in Africa. So these are the things that forms it, and what any person that shares such ambition must grapple with. You talk of targeted market entry, focusing on high growth African infrastructure markets. You need to scope it, observe, work with your team, your supply chain team, your cost engineers, your strategy team, to determine which of the African countries that has that market that can accept your ambition. We've been able to map out some, look at people like Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Benin, there are a whole lot of them. Because you don't want to go to a country where they are fighting, for instance, it becomes endemic to the vision. World-class talent. So in training our personnel, so we're not looking at training personnel that can work in Nigeria. We're training personnel also that can be able to work according to international standard in other countries. So this forms the bridge upon which we are couching our daily activities to ensure that that Pan-African vision or global vision is sustained. So that's basically it. And in conclusion, let me just say that since we have proven domestically that we have the track record and technical depth, we are poised globally, we have the strategy and initial footprint which we have developed here in country. We have aligned for growth. Our goals match Africa's needs. One of our motto is improving African life in terms of energy availability, and pipelines, like the previous speaker said, is a core in terms of energy availability. So it will be safe to say that our domestic strength is proven. Our strategy for global leadership is clear. Let's then build together. Let's build the future together. Because the point is, what we are talking about here is the future of Africa energy being built by Africans for the world. I think that's what I have for us. Thank you.
In 2021, so it has started. We are somewhat in the middle of the decade, and the horizon is up until 2030. So broadly, we have 7 pillars that we focus on. That is supply, demand, infrastructure, economic principles, arrears, and decarbonization, and also capability building. So we're here today to talk about the infrastructure element of things and specifically pipelines, but we thought we'd just set some context. So I'm here on behalf of the coordinating director, Mr. Ed Ubong, who unfortunately had a prior engagement. My name is Ramata Abdullahi, and I am the team lead for the Economic Principles workstream. I'd like to stand on existing protocols. Distinguished guests, industry leaders, stakeholders and partners in the gas value chain, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is an honor to address the distinguished gathering at an important time in our nation's energy journey. Nigeria's decade of gas represents a deliberate national effort to move from being a gas-endowed nation to a gas-driven economy. Our goal is to transform natural gas from a resource of promise into a driver of national development. Our country is blessed with over 200 trillion cubic feet of proven reserves, yet the full potential of these reserves can only be realized through effective evacuation, distribution, and market linkage, and that begins with pipelines. Pipeline infrastructure is the physical backbone of the decade of gas. It is the difference between gas in the ground and gas in the economy. Without it, production remains stranded, industries remain undersupplied, and our vision of the energy-led industrialization remains deferred. The Decade of Gas initiative was conceived to reposition gas as a transition fuel that would become the very foundation of our economic transformation. As we progress through this critical decade, the imperative is clear that we must build robust pipeline systems that connect our gas supply to demand, but also connect ambition to opportunity, both for this decade and beyond. Success will depend on the strength, resilience, and reliability of our pipeline infrastructure. Pipelines are at the heart of the gas economy. They connect production fields to processing plants, industries, power stations, and export terminals. At the upstream end, pipelines connect fields and processing plants, improving flow assurance and encouraging more producers to bring gas to market. In the midstream, they provide the arteries that distribute gas efficiently across the nation, creating reliability and scale for industrial power users. Downstream, pipelines facilitate the emergence of city gas networks, industrial clusters, and CNG corridors that deepen domestic utilization. Our goal is to ensure that every molecule produced can find a productive use in power, manufacturing, transport, and eventually in the emerging hydrogen economy. With all of this in mind, and like you just heard in our video, we've started to unlock supply, and we've identified 20 priority gas projects that can unlock about 4.6 BCF in incremental supply. And we've started very recently doing the same on the demand side. So we're looking at the priority demand projects that will be the sink for those supply projects. So for us at the Decade of Gas, we understand the criticality of the pipelines that connect these two efforts. Subsequent to all of this, we need to keep a close eye on the progress of critical infrastructure that will expand pipeline connectivity and ensure that gas flows efficiently from source to the demand centers we have identified. Top amongst these are the Ajaokuta-Kaduna-Kano AKK gas pipeline, which is under construction, enabling gas supply into the north and connecting more of the country. We are also working with the various stakeholders involved to ensure that projects like the OB3 and ELPS expansion are executed in time ensuring that gas from operators get delivered to off-takers in the western part of the country and beyond. So we work together with the project owners, and we get progress updates on a monthly basis at the Secretariat. So these are the projects that we've identified as being critical to the achievement of the aims of the Decade of Gas. I think I'm speaking to an audience of pipeline professionals. So what we have here is a brief description of each of those projects, but I feel like that might not be very necessary. So it's the OB3 pipeline, the ELFS expansion project, the AKK project. So beyond the Decade of Gas is only the beginning. Beyond 2030, we must envision a fully integrated regional gas network, linking domestic supply to neighboring markets across Western and Northern Africa, supported by the ongoing development of the AAGP, African Atlantic Gas Pipeline, an extension of the West Africa Gas Pipeline, WAGP, which will enhance energy security, foster industrial growth, and solidify our nation's role as a regional gas hub. As we expand, we must remain uncompromising on safety and environmental standards. Robust systems are not just about capacity, they are about reliability, safety, and sustainability. I spoke about the top 3 projects that we are currently tracking that we've classified as critical. But in the coming year, we're looking to expand that list and look at what other pipeline projects specifically are going to be classified as critical, and they need to be tracked and monitored, and where possible supported to ensure that they're delivered, and making sure that our supply and demand sources are linked towards the delivery of the Decade of Gas. Ladies and gentlemen, to achieve the promise of the Decade of Gas, Nigeria must build, maintain, and optimize its pipeline backbone. Building a robust pipeline system is a national imperative. It is the backbone upon which our aspirations for power, industry, and cleaner growth depend. Let us therefore commit to collaboration to build pipeline systems that embody our collective vision, a secure, sustainable, and prosperous gas-powered future. Thank you. Delivered on behalf of Mr. Ed Ubong, Coordinating Director of the Decade of Gas. Thank you very much.
Chairman, House Committee on Petroleum Resources Midstream, on the occasion of the Nigerian Premier International Pipeline Infrastructure, Technology, and Energy Conference and Exhibition, NIPITECS 2025, holding 11th to 12th November 2025 at the Abuja Continental Hotel. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It gives me pleasure to extend my heartfelt goodwill message to the organizers, participants, and distinguished stakeholders of NIPITECS 2025. The theme of the conference, Building a Robust Pipeline System for the Decade of Gas and Beyond, speaks directly to one of Nigeria's most critical infrastructure imperatives. As we enter the Decade of Gas and beyond, strong, modern, efficient pipeline systems are central to translating our abundant natural resources into industrial growth and energy security and sustainable socio-economic development. The Petroleum Industrial Act, PIA 2021, clearly delineates the upstream and downstream, midstream and downstream segments of our petroleum industry, assigning legal regulatory responsibilities to each part. In particular, under the Act, the midstream segment, which we are involved in, is explicitly recognized and regulates under the jurisdiction of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NNDPRA, while upstream is under the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC. Critically, Section 2127 of the PIA provides for the issuance of licensing permits to lay, operate, and maintain pipelines, communication lines. My military voice, even though I'm not a soldier. So, okay, it's back. So critically, Section 127 of the PIA provides for the issuance of licenses, permits, and to lay, operate, maintain pipelines, communication lines, and other infrastructure required for midstream and downstream petroleum operations. This underscores that pipelines are central to midstream gas transportation and infrastructure. Further, Section 232 of the PIA mandates that the commissioning and abandonment of petroleum wells, installation, structures, utilities, plants, and pipelines must be conducted in accordance with good international petroleum industry practice and guidelines issued by the Commission or authority. It is equally important to highlight that our parliamentary oversight architecture gives specific mandate to the House committee responsible for the midstream sector. According to our standing rules, according to the standing rules of the House of Representatives, under Order 18, Rules 117 to 124 and Rules 126 to 209 of the House of Representatives Standing Rule, the House is empowered by Section 62 of the Constitution to establish committees with standing and investigative jurisdiction. More specifically, the Committee on Petroleum Resources Midstream of the House of Representatives is explicitly constituted and its jurisdiction defined to include A. Oversight the ministry responsible for petroleum resources and the NNPCL on midstream activities. B. Crude oil refining. C. Bulk storage. D. Transportation pipelines, which is central in this case. Then E. Transportation network operations. F. Wholesale petroleum liquid supplies. G. Petroleum product distribution and operation of facilities for production of petrochemicals. H. Crude oil marketing and revenue for petrochemicals. I. Examining and scrutinizing NNPCL and its subsidiaries and all oil-related companies in the midstream sector. J. Jointly with other committees of the House, that's upstream, downstream, oversight the environmental remediation activities. K. Examining, scrutinizing. L. The annual budget estimation of the NNPCL and its subsidiaries and all oil-related companies and present same to the House for consideration and approval. So these are the rundown of the jurisdiction of the House Committee on Petroleum Resources Midstream. In this light, pipeline systems are not just operational components. They are explicitly recognized in the legal, regulatory, and parliamentary oversight framework as fundamental to the midstream midstream gas infrastructure that will drive Nigeria's energy future. I therefore commend the organizers of this conference for providing this timely and critical platform that brings together policymakers, investors, industry experts, and innovators from Nigeria and sub-Saharan Africa through the exchange of ideas, presentation of cutting-edge technology, fostering of collaborations, and showcasing of innovations. This event will help deepen our understanding and accelerate progress in building a resilient, efficient, and future-ready pipeline network. As a legislator and advocate for sound infrastructural and energy transformation, I reaffirm my commitment to supporting policies, legislative frameworks, and oversight processes that will enhance investment, innovation, transparency, and accountability in our midstream and pipeline sectors. I wish all participants fruitful deliberations and outcomes that will translate into concrete actions in strengthening Nigeria's pipeline industry, optimizing our gas economy, and unlocking the socio-economic benefit of all Nigerians. I will also wish to state here that the Committee on Petroleum Midstream will be willing to work in future with plan. So don't be surprised when we give you a call very soon so that we can collaborate and present something for the nation. Thank you very much and congratulations for this successful.
Indicators for all these phases in the island network. They anticipate, they engage, they integrate, monitor, and adapt. For the key activities under anticipation, you must have baseline assessment, stakeholder mapping, root sensitivity analysis. This must be done. How do you know that you actually perform? What are the indicators you are looking at? That should be on the percentage of stakeholders group identified, completeness of social baseline data. That will tell you whether you are actually doing, you tell you what you're supposed to do. Under engage, public opinion focus groups, impact disclosure. You must have that. You must know the number of engagements, attendance, diversity, and inclusion is very, very key. Stakeholder satisfaction score should also be there. You must have all these data. That's something that you need to work on. Integrate. You must have root adjustment design notifications, and then have model for compensation and refinement. You must look at the percentage of community recommendations to be integrated, design and learn track. You must allow the community to also recommend some things. You must not all of them. Just give them some level of understanding, level of belonging on that level. They're not doing what we got there, but it's asking to their community. A well-informed community is as good as your partner and co-manager for you in your project. So it's very, very important. I'll take a case study on the AKK gas pipeline applications. I'm happy that all this is here. If you look at, you are taking gas, you are piping gas from Niger Delta to all the way to Kano. But I think that if you can apply the AMA framework to any social mapping would have identified that new pattern out of the corridors where you actually people would have avoided data concern of conflicts. You have a structured dialogue forums every 2 months per state that also identify or unified messaging and remedy misinformation. Because most of the time happens about misinformation. But when the communities are all aware that a structured dialogue with the communities, they're not going to have some of these problems. Then incorporating local inputs on familiarized access might also have minimizing the routing delays. grievance dashboard shared publicly could have improved accountability and reduced rumor-driven hostility. Some of the hostilities are actually rumor-driven. But when you are transparent, when people know what you are doing, publicly, share what information publicly, it will help a lot. Then annual review meetings between NIPITECS and host communities will allow iterative development. You look back and see what you have done correctly and then correct them. I think that this simulation that's systematic engagement translates into tangible risk mitigation, cost efficiency, and reputational gains for pipeline operators and host communities alike. And I believe that this particular annual framework can also apply to both big pipeline, gas to power, and LPG expansion programs. What are the policy implications for Africa's energy future? One, institutionalized standards. Embedded community engagement requirements into pipeline licensing and environmental impact assessment framework, defining minimum consumption frequency and responsiveness mechanism. We can also link finance performance. International and local lenders should integrate social performance metrics into due diligence projects, demonstrating transparent engagement, demonstrating due diligence. Then projects that demonstrate transparent engagement should receive a regulatory approval or physical incentives. This will help build a local capacity, co-invest in community engagement training hubs to build local expertise in negotiation, data literacy, and participatory monitoring for whole communities. There must also be mandate grievance mechanisms. Establish an independent grievance redress systems with public reporting of resolution outcomes to prevent dispute escalation and build credibility. It is very, very important. Then we have to align with energy transition. Integrate stakeholder engagement into national energy transition plans to ensure that pipeline projects maintain social acceptance and uphold environmental responsibility. In conclusion, I will choose partnership over hostility. Community engagement is a measurable engineering safeguard, not a peripheral CSR activity. Comparative evidence demonstrates that projects embedding participatory mechanism experience fewer original disruptions and stronger public legitimacy. The annual framework offers a replicable model linking social inclusion and diversity to quantifiable risk outcomes through KPIs and continuous learning loops. As Africa, as Nigeria, and the global south enter the decade of gas and beyond, pipeline system resilience will depend as much on social architecture as on technical design. So transforming hostility into partnership is therefore not just ethical, it's essential to operational excellence, investor confidence, and sustainable energy development. By embedding engagement within engineering governance, pipeline projects can build robust systems that serve both infrastructure needs and community prosperity. I will end and say that peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but a means by which we arrive at that goal. These are the words of Martin Luther King Jr. I will say, let's continue the conversation. Thank you, and God bless. They do not have the expertise, but they are communities. They cannot start with their communities. Let them be aware. Don't just go and meet one chief in the village. One chief does not represent a community. Let them be led from that community. Let them be a project. Let them be part of the project management cycle. Evidence from comparative analysis. I look at analysis of 8 African and international pipeline projects revealed that any transparent and continuous engagement consistently correlates with improved project performance. We look at the Trans-Adriatic pipeline, that's the one that moved from Greece through Albania through Adriatic Sea and Italy. This particular project achieved areas through over 1,700 consultations and public disclosure portals. Conversely, limited dialogue in the West African gas pipeline, the Nigerian, Benin, Togo, and Ghana corridor, contributed to mistrust and early vandalism incidents. So you will have delayed reduction in terms of when projects are structured, have professional engagement recorded. They will record fewer delays on average compared to reactive approaches when it comes to consultation. In terms of security incidents, we have fewer vandalisms and sabotage incidents in projects adopting participatory mechanisms and transparent dialogue, whereby the communities are part of the ongoing process. I look at the model that I would like to propose, differences for community engagement. Look at the AMA model. The AMA framework says it has 5 related approaches. One is anticipate, identify social and environmental sensitivities early within your project and within that corridor. Engage, build transparent, inclusive dialogue with communities. Not one person in the community, with communities, not just the villages. Integrate, translate community feedback into design and operation. 4, monitor, that is maintain oversight and communication throughout the project lifecycle. Adapt, adjust strategies based on community input and project performance. I was happy when PSL was actually giving their presentation. They mentioned about inclusion, having community engagement, stakeholders engagement. It's a very key instrument, very critical when it comes to project management. If you don't engage the stakeholders, not just the stakeholders who are the users, you also have to, whenever your pipeline is passing, you just have to engage those communities then. I'll tell you a story of one of the projects we have run in Kano. That was in 2020. We had a project manager who claimed that because he's a French person, he can run the project from France. I told him I was managing the project from my own side in the industry. I said, please, can we have a Nigerian project manager? Somebody who can, since you cannot come to Nigeria, can you have an alternate person who can actually see things from the lens of the country, who understand the culture, who understand where this project is going to be decided? He said that he will manage it from there. I said, okay, no problem. It came to the point where they had to choose a network provider. I think they used Google because they used to think that, oh, if I can do whatever will be better for that particular artist, based on their own opinion. It's no problem, choosing the network provider. The day they were to go and erect the mast, the community came and said they cannot erect the mast. We had to bring the law of 3 good weeks. They had to bring in a Nigerian who works for the company to go and do what in person on their behalf before they had the motion and finally erected the mast. Second one now had to do with, okay, what did that now? Okay, the network provider that erected the mast was from a network, I don't want to call the network provider, but it wasn't efficient. But to them, it was efficient. When you have peculiarities in communities, things that work in a particular area, it's not all network that works in all areas. During the site acceptance test, the project failed. It wasn't the part of acceptance test.
We today we want to provoke our thoughts on building robust pipeline systems that will enable us to have sustainable development. So if you just put my slides, can I have the slides up running? Please just wait for the slides to come on screen. So it's just some thoughts, and it's not working. If you can just move the slides for me. Okay, thank you. So again, just a little about Renaissance. Who are we? So on the 16th of March, Renaissance acquired the interest of SPDC, and we took over the field that was operated by SPDC. So, and we have a vision. That vision for us in the Renaissance is to be Africa's leading energy company, enabling energy security and industrialization in a sustainable manner. And we have our core values in Renaissance. And those core values is what drives us as we embark on this journey. And those core values is collaboration, respect, integrity, safety, and performance. So some thoughts as we look at, what you call the so I just want you to imagine a Nigeria after the outcome of the ticket of gas. What do you think? What do you see? So what do we see in Renaissance? We see a possibly $10 trillion economy. We see power being solved already. Therefore, the creativity of us Nigerians is unlocked already. You know, we're extremely creative people. And sometimes it's sad that the creativity is used for, like what they just talked about. They are creative in the other way. What is creativity? The length they can go.
A truckload that you see, 33,000 liters, only takes is equivalent to 200 barrels. Is that what we want to continue to do with our pipelines? They are the arteries of the economy. And today, that lifeline has now become a frontline. I repeat, the lifeline is now the frontline. And that's one of the things. So, the things that we should talk about is the lifeline and the challenge. We have a lot of pipelines everywhere that are mentioned. But this pipeline itself, what does it do? It powers our industries and our economy. Yet, vandalism, sabotage, theft, environmental degradation, and all that, well, they affect this vital infrastructure. So this bridge is not a technical fault anymore. It is a wound to our economy. Yeah? Our environment and our national pride. We lose millions of dollars every time to organized technology-enabled crime. I remember some few years back when they say, oh, people have tapped into your line, a 12-inch line. People struggle to tap in 1-inch line. But today, people are tapping 12-inch line to another 12-inch line. And they will run it for kilometers. You just find out that, you have no pressure drop. Maybe your pressure drop is only 1 minute. Then you just, you're pumping. At the end of the day, nothing at the end of the day. That's where we are. And that's why we must change this narrative. Over the years, we have deployed patrols, private contractors, surveillance systems, but often in what? Isolation. That's what we're doing. Isolation. From all the companies, name it, IOCs, everybody, they have their, and everybody wants to keep their network to their chest. Different agencies, different data, different command centers. Without integration, intelligence is delayed. Responses are very slow, and accountability get lost. The pipeline security, we need to look at the difference between prevention and the catastrophe that it brings to us. The question before us today is that, it's not that are we doing enough? Yeah, inside us, are we doing enough? We may be doing enough. But for me, are we doing it in collaborative or together in togetherness?
Community ownership, investor confidence, because when there are no laws, nobody wants to come and invest. I remember I was talking to one of the OEMs, and he said, you know, if the new government can just come in and change the laws, so there is no sustainability even in whatever policies that we have. Infrastructure growth, post-community development, and decarbonization and gas transition. So you can see what the PIA has led to, and if well implemented, most of these bottlenecks will go, and there will be confidence in our system. Investors will be confident to come and invest, because it takes a lot of funding for you to actually manage pipeline.
Thank you. Thank you. One time. Say what? Say what? Ray. I'm not hearing you. Say what? One time. Honestly. One time. Ray. Well done, Dr. Vincent. Thank you, DJ. Thank you. So, sir, to wrap up, a vote of thanks. Sir, BDM, a vote of thanks to wrap up the event. Okay, the MD, sir. We need you for the vote of thanks. Sir, no, he says you are at the best position to do. Please celebrate the MD as he gives the vote of thanks and wraps up the event. Thank you.
On behalf of Plan and all the work that has been done here, I want to thank everyone for coming. We also believe that this program continues tomorrow, and we expect everybody to come out and to be able to share knowledge and move us to the next level. Thank you for coming, and everybody have a good night rest. Thank you.
Can we give the MD a round of applause, please, for sponsoring today's dinner, for making us enjoy yourself, for making this environment of high ambience, and of course giving us a luxury which Obini, of course, Mobini deserves. So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ofofonono. You can call me MC Off and On. I turn your event on and I off every dull moment. See you tomorrow by 9 a.m. where we wrap up the conference. I leave you in the hands of superstar DJ Technical as to do their thing. Bye for now. Thank you. Community. And ladies and gentlemen, they said the best time to celebrate and cut the cake would be at NIPITECS 2025. And we are so honored to have them do this with us. So please inform all of your colleagues outside that we are about to witness the cutting of the 10 years anniversary cake for Umogini Pipeline Infrastructure Limited. And of course, we'll be spelling and chanting the word pipelines. When we get to the final letter of the word pipelines, they will cut this beautiful cake. So ladies and gentlemen, please inform your colleagues outside that time has been far spent having the dinner or the lunch for most people. Please inform them to come inside. Thank you. We can see the plant president coming inside. And so if plant president is in the hall, we expect every other delegate to kindly have their seat in the hall. Please. Please. Thank you. So I'm going to go in for the last time and call them. And if I call them this last time, they don't come in, we'll cut the cake and we would leave them. I'll be back now. Thank you. Umugini Pipeline Infrastructure Limited.
Well, I want to thank everyone. Well, my voice, I think I'll improve my voice. We want to celebrate everyone today. I'll tell you, this was like a dream, and it started, and we didn't believe we have gotten to this point. But 10 years down the line, I remember when we went to the railway the first time, and we said, let us put an action there. And I remember the book I was on the game. But like I said, Umugini cannot work in silo. That's my problem. The issue is that Umugini is presenting. Because part of the paper I'm going to say is that if you do not collaborate, there is no way it can sustain this. 10 years, I don't know what 20 years will look like. Because of the kind of technology, the guys are also doing. The way people have gone technology-wise in time is amazing. So we need to tell ourselves that we got to collaborate. And that's what we really present to everybody today, that we need to integrate. I want to thank everybody once again. As we cut this cake, I don't know, can we just cut this cake just like that? I would love to invite, Madam, can you step forward? Can we come forward?
Need to succeed further. Are you ready to spell success with me? And when we spell success, they will cut the cake. The first letter, and then the next letter, 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 and finally, hip, hip, hip. Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen, celebrating a decade of lasting progress. Umugini Pipeline Infrastructure. Hit me, DJ. One time. The Blood Presidents, please join on stage. Our BOT, please join on stage. Please, all of our plan executives, you kindly appeal, you join on stage as we cut this very beautiful cake. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Excellence, innovation, creating value in the entire value chain of pipeline. Ladies and gentlemen, Umugini, thank you. So I know most of us might not know how to spell Umugini, so now we will catch you. We are going to spell Umugini, and on the last letter of the word Umugini, they will cut the cake. Are you ready to spell with me? Are you ready to spell with me? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, our MD and CEO would like your hands on the cake first, and every other person, please join hands with him, please. Are you ready? And after we have the last letter, ladies and gentlemen, sound will give us what we need. Are you ready to spell Umugini with me? The first letter, the second letter, the third letter, then the next letter, the next letter, the next letter, and finally, let's have the plan president say something.
This is a big congratulations to Umugini. Now, this is a unique company. I know if we said it in the past about pipeline company, we're talking about company that provides conveyancing, pipeline in Nigeria, everybody will shake their head. They will tell you it is not possible. How can you build a business on pipeline? Somebody else or another entity is producing, another entity is probably using, and you build an entity on pipeline. But these guys, they are trailblazers, and they have proven that it is possible. How can you develop technology in Nigeria and make it work? You need to go and you need to know about their technology. I hope you will share some of what you're doing. And that's why we like people to come. We'll be together with you to learn from your successes. I know a little bit of all the systems they put in place. Their monitoring system, their control system, it's unbelievable. And it is working. The evidence is this thing. We celebrate with you. And then 20 years from now, or 10 years from now, you come and celebrate bigger this thing and carry us along with you, Abio. Thank you very much. Thank you, MC. Where's the MC? Thank you. Yeah.
So a quick photo session. Plan President, please don't go down yet. Okay, a quick photo session, please. We are VIPs. Please, a quick photo session. Thank you. Thank you. Once again, can you celebrate them? You want to join part 2 of the celebration, we advise that you come for the dinner today, which is fully sponsored by Umugini. Your Excellencies, very distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we switch gears immediately to the very next presentation. Of course, at this juncture, we are honored to invite a leader in energy and pipeline engineering. Speaking of the CEO and MD of Renaissance Africa Energy Limited. With an extensive experience in managing complex pipeline projects and delivering technical excellence across the energy sector, he has been a pioneer in ensuring efficient and resilient pipeline operations. He will be delivering a keynote address titled Building Robust Pipeline Systems for the Decade of Gas and Beyond Technical Considerations. Of course, he's ably represented today by Pankis Hayes, who is the Availability Improvement Manager Pipelines at Renaissance Africa Energy Limited. Please help me celebrate him as he comes forward to do the presentation on building a robust pipeline system. Thank you. Please celebrate him once again.
Ladies and gentlemen, standing on existing protocols, I just want to say good afternoon. It's a real honor for me to be here representing the CEO and MD of Renaissance. I'll say some few things about Renaissance. And what we're doing today is we want to provoke our thoughts on building robust pipeline systems that will enable us to have sustainable development. So if you just put my slides, can I have the slides up running? Please, just waiting for the slides to come on. So it's just some thoughts, and oh, it's not working. If you can just move the slides for me. Okay, thank you. So again, just a little about Renaissance. Who are we? So on the 16th of March, Renaissance acquired the interest of SPDC, and we took over the field that was operated by SPDC. So, and we have a vision. That vision for us in Renaissance is to be Africa's leading energy company, enabling energy security and industrialization in a sustainable manner. And we have our core values in Renaissance. And those core values is what drives us as we embark on this journey. And those core values is collaboration, respect, integrity, safety, and performance. So some thoughts as we look at, as we just look at what you call so I just want you to imagine a Nigeria after the outcome of the decade of gas. What do you think? What do you see? So what do we see in Renaissance? We see a possibly $10 trillion economy. We see power being solved already. Therefore, the creativity of us Nigerians is unlocked already. You know, we're extremely creative people. And sometimes it's sad that the creativity is used for, like what they just talk about. They are creative in the other way. But it's creativity. The lane they can go. So what do you see? We see world-class infrastructure. That's what this allows us to have, world-class infrastructure. You know, and truly becoming a preferred tourism destination. We have summer from January to December in Nigeria, just like they have sometimes in Asia. And we have the weather, we have the terrain to be a world-class tourism destination, but we lack the infrastructure. So it means after the decade of gas, we can be leapfrog as a nation. A $10 trillion economy. What do you see? We see smart and intelligent pipeline distribution systems. Not only, so they're talking about the big distribution lines, the trunk lines, but we see distribution systems right into houses. You know, I lived in a city in Malaysia for 8 years, Miri. And gas was piped to my house. So the gas was connected to the cooker. We didn't have to use any cylinders. So I dream that that is what will happen in the future here. So we don't even need to be using cylinders, yes. So that is what we see. What else do we see? We see a thriving and prosperous Africa. Enabled by a prosperous Nigeria. Why? Because we have the biggest population and the biggest economy. So if Africa must succeed, it must start from Nigeria. We have the numbers, we have the population, we have the economy. So why is gas then the catalyst for that? Just some few thoughts. I think she has told us we have massive proven reserves, more than 200 TCF. So we have massive reserve, and there are still other reserves yet to be discovered. What else do we have? Gas is clean energy. So it gives us a big opportunity to develop in a sustainable manner without affecting the environment. What is the other catalyst for us? A big population. We are more than 200 million. And then if you travel from Port Harcourt to Sokoto, it's almost close to 2,000 kilometers. If you travel from Lagos to Kano, it's almost about 2,000 kilometers. So we have a big landmass. And we have also, so more than 920,000 square kilometers. So that means we have a massive geographic footprint. You start from the rainforest in the south, almost towards the desert in the north. In between, you have what you call the savannah. So we have what you call a technically challenging terrain, from the rainforest right almost to the desert in the north. That means we have a challenge that only by utilizing these resources we'll be able to resolve. And at the heart of that is reliable pipeline infrastructure. Because the only way to bring this resource from where it is gotten to where we need it is only through sustainable industrialization. So the pipeline is key to enable this dream to come true. So we'll just talk about some few things to look at as we look at these systems. So, you know, I like us in this room. We're the elites. But let me tell you, we're less than 10% of Nigeria's population. So think of 200 million people. Maybe we're just 20 million, the elites. There are 180 million people. Now, we can talk about the importance of a gas infrastructure, pipelines. But what do the ordinary people, what do they think? What do they understand? We need to build national alignment. Because for them, for some people, the pipeline is a parasitic infrastructure. It takes resources from their community to give to others. That's the way they see it. So there must be deliberate, what you call national alignment. And I think it's important that we go to the grassroots. Because if we don't, then it means we've not learned from the mistake of the past. The last 60 years have taught us a lesson in the oil and gas industry. That if the ordinary people don't understand what we want to do, we've not started anything. So I look forward to, we'll go into the local languages and have those engagements. Let them understand that this is a new season, a new chapter for us. Very, very important. Then, of course, I talk about strategic environmental and social impact management. Now, as you know, wherever you bring pipelines, there is a very big environmental impact and also a social impact. So we go and disturb the ecosystem within a virgin community. We bring in people there, we construct pipelines, bring people, they behave differently. And when they leave the ecosystem, the social, what you call, system in that community, the culture is disturbed already. And the truth is, most of the ideas about how to do the things that's happening today, it didn't originate from those communities. It is as people come into the communities, they give them ideas. So it's extremely important that we must be strategic in environmental and social impact management as we go to this era of gas with so much pipeline infrastructure, so we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. So I think I'll say that we do construction very well. All staff have shown us. But there are things we don't do very well. And you look at us as a people, we don't do maintenance very well. We are not interested in maintenance. Operations management and maintenance is a problem for us. We can build things, we can't maintain. Therefore, we must deliberately build the competence for operations management and maintenance. Very, very important. Now, of course, I call it right-of-way management. I call it effective use of the land. So today, everybody is taking his own land to go and build his own infrastructure. Is that how it's going to be? So we need to integrate and collaborate. And we need to look at emergency response systems. When we build robust gas pipeline systems and a mistake on a gas system, we can have cities engulfed in flames. So we need to think of effective emergency response systems so that we then are able to respond. When the inevitable happens, we can be able to deal with it. What are the other things? The manpower. Do we have the technical manpower to manage robust gas line systems? The question is no, we don't have. We need skilled technicians. When you talk of gas systems and gas is pouring everywhere, we need very skilled technicians that are certified, that can work, that can change small valves, that can do all sorts of things. Because if you don't have them, then the accidents will just keep increasing. So we need to look at our complete educational system to make sure that we have the fit-for-purpose manpower, and then, of course, the research and development that allows us to be able to develop solutions to what is local here. Then the last thing is the support, what I call service. The support, what you call industries. Pipelines. We need to produce them locally. But what are the other things? Valve system, control systems, and all the other things that will support this. It provides an opportunity for a thriving local industry. But we need to make sure that also follows, because then it's sustainable. Like I told some people outside, very easy. We have a problem. We take a plane, go to UK, go to America. We go to OTC, we're looking for technology. So I told them, when are we going to develop our own technology here? When we did take a plane and come to Nigeria to come to our own OTC to see what we've developed. And we're very happy about those trips. I'm going to OTC, I'm going to UK, I'm going to that conference. When are they going to come here and see what we've developed? I think we have an opportunity with this decade of gas and building robust pipeline systems to turn the tide. So just some critical success factors, I call them 3. I say learn, learn, and learn. And today I'm going to challenge us. What have we learned in the last 60 years in oil and gas in Nigeria? We talk about the oil and gas pipelines. What have we learned? And which library will I go to as a young person who is 10 years old, who is 15 years old, who will be 20 years old in the next 10 years? Where will I go to? Which library will I go to learn the mistakes of the past so I don't repeat it? What you see is we have a problem because all the knowledge is with us here.
That means if we don't find a means of making sure that what we have learned is kept somewhere, the next generation, they'll do worse mistakes than us. So we don't have a national database. So I think Plan and NIPITECS provides a platform for us to start. Let the mistakes of the past. There were many mistakes that we made in the past. There were many errors that we made. Let them be properly documented so that the next generation can then pick it up. Because what I call it, a generation is existing in the industry today. People that were there in the 70s till now, they're exiting the industry today. So what is going to happen to the next generation coming? We must provide a database for them. We must learn from our mistakes. We must learn from nations that have done the same thing. Then our CEO has a new word he has taught us. It's called imagineering. Imagine and engineer. Now, we must imagine how the future looks like. What is that future? And then begin to engineer. We must imagine the system and begin to engineer it. That is the only way that we can succeed. So just some few challenges and opportunities. So regulatory framework, right regulatory framework. We're in the world of artificial intelligence and all those things. Do we have the right regulatory framework? Like I talk about technical education. You know, the people that repair our cars, they don't have any certification. And sometimes they fix the car, you enter the car, you go and have an accident, the brake fails. There's no technical education. Is almost dead in our country. Skilled people that can fix things, whether plumbing or what. Now, in building robust pipeline systems, especially for gas, we cannot afford that kind of error and mistake. That anybody by the road, where did you learn through work? Now there I learn how to do work. Okay, come and fix this system for us. No, it's not going to work. So we must go back to technical education, right regulatory framework that allows us to begin to get the right kind of manpower and the right kind of systems that will allow us to operate safely. Funding and business management. So I like what has been said today. Actually, the pipeline transportation is a business opportunity, but we need to run the business management side of it so that it becomes profitable. Then someone can fund it. Someone can fund it. So we need to run the economics of just a pipeline infrastructure company and then make it profitable. Then we can get funding for it. What are the other things we need to look at? Environmental and social impacts management, very, very important. I think this is one of the biggest lessons of the last 6 years in our industry. Very, very big. The EIA, the social impact assessment, doesn't need to be a file that is kept inside an office. It needs to be something that is deliberately implemented in the local community. Very, very important. If not, we'll repeat the mistakes of the last 60 years. Then, of course, R&D, innovation and partnerships. I don't think there's any country in Africa that has per capita the amount of universities that we have. So we have to put a demand on the higher institutions, research and development, innovation. Every year, thousands of engineers write projects and they graduate. Unfortunately, less than 5% is relevant for our industry. So why is there a gap between us and the tertiary institutions? You know, I was opportune to be in Malaysia, and Petronas, I work in Petronas. And Petronas have a university. So in my role as a pipeline engineer in Petronas, we had regular connection with the universities, the Petronas University. Therefore, as we have problems, they were already solving it for us. And therefore, that university was a support system to us, and we could innovate many things. So we have to come back to developing local solutions for the challenges that we're going to face. And my own theory is, if the solution doesn't exist anywhere, we create it ourselves. So I asked them during the tea break, I said, the Europe we're going to, when they had their problem, where did they go and solve it? They develop a local solution. Now they're exporting to us. We too should develop our local solutions. We have the manpower, we have the universities, but there needs to be a difference in our collaboration so that can happen. Then innovations and partnerships. What are the other things? Knowledge transfer. I'm very passionate about this. Like I said, if you look at those of us in the front seat, I dare say I don't see anybody who is below 50. Yes. And you see, then the younger people are much towards the back. You can see. So the point is, a time is going to come that we're all going to exit. But what happens to the knowledge we acquired in the industry? What happens to the last 60 years of knowledge we have gained in oil and gas pipelines in this industry? We need to make sure that that knowledge is transferred to the next generation. And then I talk about that, right quality manpower at the technician level, at the engineers level, but most importantly, at the operations and maintenance level. We are good at building things, we're not good at maintaining. When I came inside here, I look at this building, I look at this hotel, and I told them, it's the same theory. We're not good at maintaining. If you go to Europe, this same kind of hotel, you see that it's been maintained well for the last 100 years. So there's a skill and there's a behavior that we must force ourselves to learn if we're not going to waste our time here. After building the infrastructure, then everything becomes bad again. So this is very, very important. So the right kind of manpower. And then, of course, materials and services, a big opportunity for us. So, just in conclusion, the decade of gas is a big opportunity for us. And as pipeline engineers, I think it opens new frontiers for us. You know, who thought that there would be major gas pipelines 30 years ago running from the south to the north? You couldn't think of that 30, 40 years ago. It's a reality today. And there will be distribution lines that will run from the cities into homes. So it's a reality, but we need to be ready for it. And we need to imagine and engineer it for the future. So finally, I think we here, we're privileged to be here at this time and season. And I believe that in NIPITECS, we then need to be active participants. Let's meet with this. Let's not sit back, because it's always very easy to just sit back and then we think someone is going to do it. So we can do something. So we thought of what can we start doing that nobody will have an excuse. I think we can start by making sure that we pass the knowledge that we have. What we've acquired in the last few years, you can pass that knowledge to somebody so that you don't go to the grave with the knowledge. So with that, we want to say thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for allowing us to make this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the availability improvement manager pipelines as Renaissance Africa Energy Limited Pankies Highs. Please, once again, can we give him a round of applause? Ladies and gentlemen, can you give yourself a round of applause as an engineer, or should I say an Imagineer? An Imagineer. Imagineering, like he said, where you take crazy ideas and add some maths, a few projects, and actually convince physics to behave. So next time you see a smooth flowing pipeline, remember somewhere that an engineer is quietly celebrating. Can we celebrate all the Imagineers in the building? Thank you so much, Renaissance, for that new word. We'd like to most respectfully recognize the presence of the Chief Operating Officer of NIPITECS Geotech, Akintunde Fadare. Please celebrate him. Thank you so much, sir, for honoring us with your presence today. Wherever you are, please wave your hands. And you have a seat there or just there, sir. Please join us in front. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we switch gears immediately for the very next critical session. Of course, the speaker is a renowned leader in engineering and regulatory practices, Engineer Professor Sadiq Abubakar, FNAE, FNSE, FNIAEE, President of the Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, Koren. Ladies and gentlemen, today he is ably represented by a Professor of Chemical Engineering from ABU Zaria, Professor Baba El Yakubu. Please help me celebrate Professor Yakubu as he comes forward to to give us a critical session titled Building Robust Pipeline Systems, the Role of Engineering, Regulations, and Enforcement. Please celebrate him. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think I have the presentation. Can you please? It is there. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is a presentation to be delivered by the President of Korean, who is right now in Ilorin, Kwara State, for another very important assignment. So he asked me to adequately represent him here. I hope I could do that. As you can see, the first slide, the title of the presentation is Building a Robust Pipeline System for the Decade of Gas. Specifically, we are going to emphasize the role of engineering, regulation, and enforcement. In fact, I will take from the previous speaker, he really indicated clearly among the challenges for this next decade, the issue of regulatory framework. So next slide shows a very simple introduction or summary of the story. As we have been talking this morning, the decades of gas is very important initiative for Nigeria's industrial development. We have to look at all the requirements, all the infrastructure, and importantly, the regulatory framework to make sure that we achieve all what we have been talking about. As we know, pipeline is a very vital infrastructure for oil and gas. We have listened to speakers in the morning. I remember Engineer Said Mohammed talked about for the last 60 years, we have been having pipeline, and now Academy of Engineering declared our pipeline to be asset of national importance, both for the evacuation, for export, and for distribution locally. So it's very important discussion we're having today regarding the importance of the gas next decade, 2021 to 2023, 2030. But of course, we have the issue of frequent pipeline failures that will threaten this vision. We have all sorts of ways where the pipeline will fail. I'm going to elaborate on that later. And therefore, we need very strong engineering oversight in terms of how do we regulate, how do we bring the code of practice, how do we bring the enabling laws to make sure that this important infrastructure is protected. Next slide shows the 4 key points on the strategic importance of pipeline. The first and the most important is the energy security. Pipeline transport energy around the country. It's like the veins that carry flows around the system. So anywhere in the country, you talk about in Malaysia, where even households receive directly gas from pipeline. So really it improves our energy security. And because of the linkage to industry, it helps in the economic growth. And of course, the environmental benefits by making sure that we have sustainable pipeline system. And then of course, finally, the integration of different systems we have in Nigeria. We talk about National Gas Expansion Program. We talk about the AKK, the Ajakuta, Kaduna kind of pipeline. All these are going to be of importance towards Nigerian industrialization. The next slide shows the key or common challenges. I mentioned earlier, we have the issue of aging infrastructure. Some of our pipelines, they have been around for more than 60 years. What happened to the upgrade, the leakages, the codes, the leakages, what do we do about them? Number 2, we have deliberate sabotage and vandalism. And in fact, I could imagine the AKK going all the way to northern Nigeria. Who is going to protect it? What is last year when we had deliberate destruction of our power supply and we could not get power in some section of the north. So imagine this bandit, if they know what is in the pipeline and the kind of havoc they can cause by just breaking the pipeline in cities. He mentioned that. So we have to look at the issue of sabotage, and we have to bring robust regulatory framework and laws that will protect this important national asset. And of course, we have to be transparent and sustainable when we develop the structure in the first place. He talked about the important issue of we can always construct, but the maintenance and sustainability are key problems. So these are really the challenges we have. Next slide shows another important aspect, that the role of regulation. Korean Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria is a sole government agency responsible for regulation of engineering in all its ramifications. So the issue of pipeline, the construction, the code of practice is very important for Korean. And of course, we are aware about the key requirement in the FIA. So Korean will go with plan to make sure that we have clear regulatory framework for the next decade, to make sure that we have our pipelines well protected. The second part is Korean also regulates the educational aspect. So I was very happy when he was talking about the needs for technicians and technologies and engineers. So Korean can work with plan to see how do we now develop our curriculum for the whole country, to see how do we meet the common requirement in terms of the technologies, technicians, and engineers. In fact, I'll be very happy to announce that Korea now is working towards joining International Engineering Alliance that consists of Washington Accord, Sydney Accord, and the Bologna Accord. I'm sure some of you are aware. So that will force Nigeria to operate in line with other countries like Malaysia, for example. So this is in line actually with what Korea is doing, and it's just a matter of collaborating with the plan and other agencies and organizations to make sure that we meet those important requirements. So regulating the system as it is, and then training manpower to meet the requirement. And of course, organizations such as NCDMB, already Korea has existing MOU and collaboration. We can all work together to make sure that this vision for the next decade is achieved with the relevant regulatory framework. Next slide. We emphasize this case of AKK, which is very important for opening the importance of gas for northern Nigerian industrialization. Beyond that, I understand that it will cross into Sahara, even to Europe. So this is very important development, and we need to really have relevant regulation and framework. Another important point is the Niger Delta pipeline failures we have seen. In fact, the previous speaker has been emphasizing the mistakes in the past. How do we document that? How do we avoid those mistakes? And I could see them coming. There is no way you can have pipeline AKK, 303 kilometers, and with bandit around, without somebody imagining what to do to sabotage. So really, we need to sit down and try to find out what do we do. Do we bring drones? Do we develop some AI technology? But it's going to come. 100%, I can assure you, some bad guys will try to sabotage. Next slide is how do we now strengthen our enforcement? So Korea will be very happy to have joint committee with all the relevant agencies, NUPRC, NMDPRA, NCDMB, to have joint understanding of what to do, because we cannot work separately in silos, because we're all involved, we're all part of it, and each agency has its own responsibility. Sometimes they are overlapping. So what do we do to see the next decade? Because very important point the previous speaker was emphasizing. As we move out from the front row, what happened to the next on the line? And there must be something we leave for them in terms of coming together, having a joint committee so that everything is done together. How do we conduct regular engineering audit of our pipelines? In other countries, this is normal daily process. But in Nigeria, we miss our audit. We miss what we're supposed to do. So how could Korea make sure that we do audit as at when due? It is very important. Because for pipeline, any slight mistakes could be very expensive in terms of leakages, in terms of fire, etc. How do you implement the pipeline integrity management system? So that there'll be a system that can proactively tells you what's wrong with our system. If there's any leakage or potential for leakage, how do you now take care of of that system without any problem happening. Again, Korean will be very happy to work with plan to make sure that we have regulation in imposing 5-line integrated management system. And then transparency and data sharing. It is very important. We have different 5 lines in the country, some private, some government. How do you share ideas? How do you come together to make sure that we are having the same understanding of the system? And eventually, how do you impose? Because Korean can have the regulation, can have the courts, but we need to work together to make sure that whatever we see is wrong, somebody imposes it, and then there will be improvement in the system. Next slide shows the future of gas pipeline. We have been talking about different understanding. In fact, we listen to Imagineering, but the future is very, very optimistic. We expect expansion of gas infrastructure, especially the West African gas pipeline. As I said earlier, the AKK will expand across Sahara. And then there will be evolving standard and new technologies. This is where Korean will have to work with other stakeholders to make sure that whatever new is evolving, or whatever we need based on our local needs, we are ready to regulate and control. Lastly, on the future, the issue of local capacity development. When are we going to stop importing this very simple technology? Because most of them are very simple, straightforward. But unfortunately, we only wait and import and import. In fact, by this time, Nigeria is supposed to stop importing pipeline because it's something that is well established, well known. It's no longer new technology. Right? So why should we be importing? We have the material, the design is very simple. So really we need to develop our local capacity. And then we have the regulatory framework that stops importation of something as simple as 5-line. Then finally, my next slide shows the simple conclusion that this very important discussion here, the decade of the gas, is both an opportunity and a challenge. Opportunity to open our gas to different industry, because I understand that Nigeria is not an oil producing country. Nigeria is a gas country. How do you really use that for industrialization? As a chemical engineer, I know gas can be used for all sorts of products. In fact, you can break your methane into synthetic crude oil, into all sorts of products. So gas really is very important for the industry. Power supply, etc. But then, number 2, how do we have robust regulation that will ensure that we develop this gas pipeline and gas industry within a kind of very sustainable framework? And then number 3, how do we come together with all the agencies responsible with having overlapping responsibility so that we can work together? To currently talk about a joint technical committee that has Korean, NCDMB, NUPRC, and other agencies, so that when we talk about gas pipeline, we talk with one voice. And finally, we need to have sound engineering and governance to make Nigeria a model for African countries. With this, I thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much.
Of course, you heard from Professor Baba El Yakubu that in pipeline infrastructure, collaboration is the backbone that ensures safety, efficiency, and resilience. Please, once again, can we give him another round of applause? Thank you. Thank you, Professor Baba El Yakubu, Professor of Chemical Engineering from ABU Zaria. Very distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to invite on stage a true leader in pipeline security and energy infrastructure, the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Umugini Pipeline Infrastructure Limited. Like you know, this year marks a decade of excellence for Umugini, 10 years of resilience, 10 years of engineering, 10 years of contributing meaningfully to Nigeria's energy backbone, from technical projects, operations, maintenance, strategic stakeholder collaborations, Umugini has driven safety, efficiency, and sustainable impact across the pipeline sector. With extensive experience in pipeline operations, security management, and integrated surveillance solutions, Engineer Omotosho Oboro has been at the forefront of ensuring the safety and resilience of critical energy infrastructure. Today, he will deliver a keynote address titled Pipeline Security and Surveillance, an Integrated Approach. Please join me in giving a big round of applause for Engineer Adeche Omotosho Oboro and the entire Umugu Pipeline Infrastructure family as he comes forward to do the presentation.
Energy infrastructure, one that powers productivity, supports national growth, and connects local.
Again, I'm on this podium again to address us. My job is very simple because, like Prof has said, well, I saw a chemical engineer again. I said, well, back to school. From transport phenomenon and all that, I'm a chemical engineer. And yeah, that's basically what it is. Because I remember one of my questions, the first question I went for in terms of interview, and somebody asked me, how do you move things? And I said, well, somebody taught me transport phenomenon. And that was as simple as that. So, I want to, on this note, observe all protocols as usual. I want to be as sober as possible. When I want to give this topic, I could also be very emotional because we have everything. But I just want to make emphasis of things that we know and things that have been said already here. And so that we can move forward with that. And setting the stage is to be able to talk about pipeline security and surveillance, an integrated approach. And one truth I reflected on when I was putting this together was saying, every nation's strength depends on the security of the systems that sustain it. We talked about maintenance and all that. How do we do all that? Yeah? In Nigeria, these systems are pipelines. The arteries of our economy. You can look at it anyhow. Those are the things that really move the mass transit of this crude oil that we talk about. I was talking outside, I was saying that a truckload that you see, 33,000 liters, only takes, is equivalent to 200 barrels. Is that what we want to continue to do with our pipelines? They are the arteries of the economy. And today, that lifeline has now become a front line. I repeat, the lifeline is now the front line. And that's one of the things. So the things that we should talk about is the lifeline and the challenge. We have a lot of pipelines everywhere that we have mentioned. But this pipeline itself, what does it do? It powers our industries and our economy. Yet, vandalism, sabotage, theft, environmental degradation and all that, well, they affect this vital infrastructure. So this bridge is not a technical fault anymore. It is a wound to our economy. Yeah? Our environment and our national pride. We lose millions of dollars every time to organized, hear me, organized technology-enabled crime. I remembered some few years back when they say, oh, people have tapped into your line, a 12-inch line. People struggle to tap in 1-inch line. But today, people are tapping 12-inch line to another 12-inch line. And they will run it for kilometers. You will just find out that, you have no pressure drop. Maybe your pressure drop is only 1 minute. Then you just, you are pumping. You are pumping. At the end of the day, nothing at the end of the day. That's where we are now. And that's why we must change this narrative. Over the years, we have deployed patrols, private contractors, surveillance systems, but often in what? Isolation. That's what we're doing. Isolation. From all the companies, name it, IOCs, everybody, they have their, and everybody wants to keep their network to their chest. Different agencies, different data, different command centers. Without integration, intelligence is delayed, responses are very slow, and accountability gets lost. The pipeline security, we need to look at the difference between prevention and the catastrophe that it brings to us. The question before us today is that, it's not that are we doing enough? Yeah, in silos, are we doing enough? We may be doing enough. But for me, are we doing it in a collaborative or in a togetherness way? I've talked about integration, I've talked about collaboration. The only way that these pipelines and all that we can sustain it for the future is by having an integrated approach to it. And that's what I bring before us. So for me, I want to paint a picture of a centralized pipeline structure and surveillance command center. A digital knife center where data from drones, from satellites, we have this. Internet of Things, sensors, and field patrols converge in real time. Now everywhere you go to AI. So what do? Analytics. Yeah? So what they do is that they detect the abnormalities, they give us the alert, real time. This is not futuristic. This is achievable with the tools and talent we already possess. We talked about many other things that we have to, but how do we harness this together? And that's what the challenge we have today. We cannot, as a nation, move forward without having to have that collaborative approach to this. And are we going to start from ground zero? I don't think so. We have the Nigerian satellite that can beam the whole of this nation. Yeah, we have them, and all those imagery that we want, the terrains and all that from the AKKs and all that we are trying to produce, we have them that can see them real time. So what can we do? So it means that we must be able to link our space technology with ground intelligence and national security systems, so we can build an homegrown surveillance ecosystem. That's the way to go. I've talked about technology, but I've not talked about one very important element, and that element is the human element. And where does the human element come from? It's the collaboration and trust. The key word here is trust. Company A does not trust Company B in terms of data management. Company C wants to cheat Company D because of custody transfer. That's the issue that we have. But start thinking of the fact that we already have a control system, a centralized one. We have a centralized one. From there, no one can say you removed 10 barrels and somebody says I moved 20 barrels. Those days I used to have companies that moved water. For some years in Nigeria, they were moving water and they were selling it to the other company for years. We don't have to mention it, but these are the things that we also seize. And for me, it is not about rivalry. It is about synergy. And where does it start from? I want to shake the government a little. I see a little foxes, they call it. NUPRC, you go there. Oh, it is an NMDPR issue. Oh, the buck is being passed. You understand? Oh, that thing should have come from NNPC. You understand? Oh, it should have been a security man that should have done it. We need to go to DMI to have done all that. But these old agencies I've mentioned, if they were working collaboratively, yeah, where you know there is that center to address this issue, I don't think there's going to be a problem. No one will be passing the buck. So for me, those agencies for us are key. And one very important agency, we call it agency, you can call it anything you want to call, is the host community. There's the stakeholders. They are the ones that know everywhere. It takes us from vulnerability to partnership with them. If you do not want to be able to give them to increase capacity, we have talked about NCDMB and all that. Yeah, they're doing wonderfully well, but they will do more. Because we still have talent in this nation. Just waiting to be harnessed. And that's what we are putting forward. And that comes to capacity building. Many of these things I'm jumping on because it has been spoken here. I'm just trying to re-emphasize it. Like I said, I'm only emphasizing that thing in our heart that we must come as a team to be able to move forward. And that goes to the capacity and innovation that I've mentioned. And for me, let government create incentives for homegrown pipeline technology. Yeah? That's the way we have to go. We are always afraid. Oh, I want to have a training campaign. And you look at it, I can never use Nigeria. No, it can never be good. Yeah, it can never be good. Oh, China's one is not good. Oh, let's go to the US. But let me shock us in this country that there's one industry that have done so well, and that's the cable industry. When you want to talk about, you want to buy cables, everybody insists on Nigerian cables. What have they done? The framework. They put it together, and quality management, they've done it up to now. Can't other industry do that? That's what we're looking at. Cable. Everybody wants to run, Niger Chin, Niger what, what's the name? You call the names. Coleman and all that. Because those guys have done a lot of work. And for us all this to happen, the policy has to change. Governance in terms of the policy. At home, we need to have supportive policies. A National Pipeline Security Coordination Council. Yeah, it's the artery of the nation. We need to have someone focused on that. We need to update our pipeline protection legislation in this country because it's so slack. People are just, I want to run a pipeline. I keep running my pipelines. Do I have the go-ahead and all that for it? Somebody wants to fly a drone in Nigeria. You need to be able to go to the Security Council and say, I want to fly drones. I want to do this. They say, no, you want to go and check my house or something. That's why those things must change. We got to change all that. For me, in terms of the economic and environment imperative, well, as the world moves towards cleaner energy, pipeline integrity becomes central to sustainability, yeah, and Nigeria energy transition. Do we have lessons that we can talk about from leadership? The last speaker talked about Malaysia. Everybody celebrates Saudi Arabia in terms of Saudi Aramco and all that, yeah. We have India and all that. So it means that they have something. If you look at it, all they do is that everything is integrated. That's basically what they do. And they have been very efficient at it. For me, Nigeria needs to own its own model. We got to own our own model. Leadership that shares data, enforces accountability, and prioritizes national interest over institutional pride. Oh, I am from this institution. Oh, don't go there. Don't go there. Why is everybody not flying planes everywhere? Why do we have FAA or something? Why do we have it? Because we have a command center. The same thing. For us, that network needs to work. Call to action. Where do we go from here? First of all, we need to unify our efforts. We must leverage on technology that I mentioned. We need to empower our communities. We need to invest in innovation. We need to ensure accountability. Well, on a closing note, pipelines to me, they carry the promise of progress and the hope of generations yet unborn. If we secure our pipelines, we can secure our economy. If our economy is secured, we can empower the people. And when the people are empowered, it means the rise for Nigeria is unstoppable. That's basically what it is. Together we can transform our vulnerability into strength, our challenges into opportunities, and our pipelines into the true arteries of a prosperous, united Nigeria. Thank you, and God bless you.
Phenomenal, spot on. Ladies and gentlemen, to secure, celebrating please once again. To secure, in his words, to secure Nigeria's energy infrastructure, the government must expand incentives for homegrown pipeline technology. Government must implement supportive policies and of course update pipeline protection legislation. This will create an environment where innovation, safety, and legal expertise will thrive. So that years from now, the way we celebrate Coleman cables, we also celebrate indigenous pipeline experts. Once again, please celebrating once again. Thank you so much, sir, for that very passionate remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, we are honored to invite on stage a visionary leader in energy policy and pipeline regulation. Of course, he is a member of the board of directors of the Pipeline Professionals Association of Nigeria Plan and also the CEO of Amelin Projects Limited. He's renowned for his expertise in policy development, regulatory frameworks, and ensuring resilience and secure pipeline infrastructure across Nigeria's energy sector. He is going to be speaking to us on a key policy address titled Policy and Regulatory Frameworks for Resilient and Secure Pipeline Infrastructure. Please join me in giving a big round of applause to Engineer Eloho Amagada, FNSE, FIMEC, and CEO of Amelin Projects. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Please permit me to ride on the existing protocol. Thank you everyone for your time. I just want to speak on the topic they mentioned, policy and regulatory frameworks for resilient and secure pipeline infrastructure. Everyone has said one thing or the other that I have in my slide, but you know, I'll still go ahead and present it. For me, the next level I expect us as, you know, industry stakeholders to move to is the era of actual implementation. You know, we are known for speaking grammars. Grammar, every time we come together, you see a lot of, you know, policies here and there. People make suggestions, but what do we do about them? So the next level is actually to do it. There are a lot of, we have so many policies, regulatory frameworks in Nigeria, but are they implemented? Like I ask a question all the time. When you see Nigerians abroad and every of them obey the traffic laws, but when they come back to Nigeria, what happened? When you see a traffic light is on red, say, this idiot. And there's a simple narrative I share most time as well. If you want a Nigerian man not to urinate in front of your house, put it there. Please urinate here. And he will say, God forbid, you want to use my urine for rituals. But if you put do not urinate here, you will say you're a craze. He will come and do it. So ladies and gentlemen, let me go straight to my presentation. I'll just run through it. So it's building, the theme for this conference is building robust pipeline systems for the decade of gas and beyond. And I'm talking on policy and regulatory frameworks for a resilient and secure pipeline. So my name again is Engineer Elo Amagada, and I'm the CEO of Amelin Projects Limited. The agenda is introduction, blah, blah, blah. I think, please, can you put the slide so that people can see what I'm sharing? Okay, so I'll go straight to the introduction. We've said a lot about the oil and gas industry accounts for about 65% of government revenue and over 85% of total exports, underscoring its dominance in national development. Okay, thank you. Then we also said the pipeline segment constitutes around 40.5% of Nigerian midstream infrastructure market, reinforcing its centrally to operational efficiency. Nigerian crude and condensate pipeline linking production feeds to 8 export terminals cover approximately about 5284 kilometers, forming the core transport system for crude, products, and natural gas. So if you look, why resilience and secure pipeline systems? Why do we need to have, you know, a robust pipeline system? Magnet significance, you look at the magnet significance, pipeline backbone, strategic role in Nigeria economy. The pipeline value chain actually is key to national development, like we said. If Nigeria must move forward, we must go beyond trucking. I think this morning I was listening to NTA, and the first thing that came on the TV was, you know, they put a video of a picture of trucks going to supply aviation fuel to the airport. To the airport. And why do we have many trucks on the road? Because we are moving away from the focus. So framework imperative. Pipeline infrastructure in Nigeria, the status today, like I said, we have over 5,000 kilometers of pipelines across the nation. So if you look at, please take it to where I am. If you look at the network, over 5,200 and something kilometers of pipelines. Current guide pipeline infrastructure in development plans could require up to 2 billion investment. And I think that's the reason today we really don't have enough pipelines, you know, to take care of the domestic and international needs. The last time I had a session with the Minister for Petroleum, and that was the former minister, and I asked him, you know, during the Ukraine war, we all know understand the value of pipeline system. We all know Ukraine supply, Russia supply, you know, gas to all the European countries. And I said, why can't we take the current NIPCO pipeline that runs from Badagry to Takoradi? Why can't we take it to Europe? If it gets to Morocco, it's already in Europe. It's already in Spain. You know, and that is a project that can revolutionize Nigeria. And yeah, so Nigeria holds significant oil and gas reserves. An example of pipeline development is the AKK project that they widely talk about. You know, so according to a World Bank report, Nigeria fled about 5318 of natural gas. This is very important, you know, for us to conserve and use for our domestic use, and even export it. But rather we flare it just because there is no pipeline network system. Pipeline infrastructure in Nigeria, the challenges. Of course, we have a lot of challenges. I'm driving this so that you can know where we are, how, you know, the right policies and implementation can actually transform into a robust pipeline. Vandalism, theft, corrosion, sabotage, so many of them. Regulatory fragmentation and legacy frameworks that were inadequate for modern midstream. So before now, there were no proper regulations, framework that actually cater for the industry. Environmental issues, pipeline rupture, spills, flaring, land-sea crossings, market pressures, aging assets with no actually maintenance records. And you have the investment needs, estimated US 471 billion, 47.1 billion CAPEX for 39 midstream gas transition pipeline projects in Nigeria. You can see what our environment suffers. This is actually very important, you know, gas that we can actually harness and use in our homes. Now, if you look at notable impacts of legislative framework, you know, between when 2011, when the Petroleum Industry Act came on board, is it 2010, right? Came on board, a lot has happened. So, legislative framework key acts, Petroleum Industry Act, PIA 2021, sorry, primary legislation governing Nigerian petroleum industry, provide legal governance, regulatory and fiscal frameworks Oil Pipeline Act governs the establishment and maintenance of pipelines in Nigeria oil and gas sector. And these are some of the key notable impacts of those legislative frameworks. Community ownership, investor confidence, because when there are no laws, nobody wants to come and invest. I remember I was talking to one of the OEMs, and he said, you know, if a new government can just come in and change the laws, so there is no sustainability even in whatever policies that we have. Infrastructure growth, host community development, and decarbonization and gas transition. So you can see what the PIA has led to, and if well implemented, you know, most of these bottlenecks will go, and there will be confidence in our system. Investors will be confident to come and invest, because it takes a lot of, you know, funding for you to actually manage pipeline. I'm sure the Mugini man will agree with me. You know, so for someone to come and invest here, you know, they need to be the right and appropriate regulatory frameworks. If you look at the regulatory bodies and institutional frameworks we have in Nigeria, we have the MPRO, policy oversight, the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, the NUPRO, upstream, NMDPRO, midstream and downstream regulation, and you have the NCDMB, local content enforcement, and yeah, for environmental compliance. So we need the right laws to be, regulations, policies to be in place. Let's see legislative and regulatory framework, pipeline licensing and rights. Under the PIA, they said any person intending to construct, operate oil and natural gas, transportation pipelines, you know, either gas or transporting pipeline license or a petroleum liquid license, you must have a license to do that. Right of way provision, section 127 of PIA grants licenses right to enter, use land strips for laying, operating and maintaining pipelines, and penalties and enforcement for non-compliance, regulatory power to revoke licensing and impose sanctions. You know, so this is what I'm talking about. We need to ensure that there are penalties, and these penalties must actually be enforced. Without enforcement, we actually will not go anywhere. Environmental sustainability and dimensions, decade of gas, and we started reaping the benefits, the AKK pipeline, OB3, and the rest of it. And according to the Renaissance guy, he said, we need to take it down to our houses. That is very important, because, you know, if you have gas in your homes, you can use it to cook, you can use it to cool your house, you can use it to heat your house. And we have integrity programs, corrosion control, inspection, leaks, blah, blah, blah. These all require funding. Environmental regulation link to energy transition. In the midst of all this, let's not forget that, you know, we need to get our country on track as well on energy transition. Driving carbon, you know, very low in our operations. Market regulations and commercial drivers. So let's look at some of the drivers. Pipelines are vital commercial infrastructure, enabling crude transport, products, distribution, and gas supply. The oil and gas sector historically accounts for 10% of Nigeria GDP, 86% of export earnings, 40% of public revenue as of August 2021. The CapEx required for pipeline expansion and upgrading, regulatory certainty via PIA, encouraging investors' confidence. Markets, mechanization, tariffs, third party. I think that's one of the best things that the government has done, introducing tariffs. Because where there's no tariff, how do you get money to fund it? You know, we need resources to fund, and, you know, private investors must come in. And what attracts them to come in is when you have the tariff framework in place. And that's, they are testing from July till December, then hopefully they come up with the right tariff. Market mechanism, tariffs, and policy incentive, domestic gas supply obligations, localization requirement, encouraging Nigerian content. Risk management and compliance framework for pipelines. Overview of risks, categories. It's a risky environment, so we must acknowledge that. Compliance elements, maintaining finance conditions, integrity management programs, periodic inspections, pigging surveillance, etc., and regulatory compliance. Fulfilling environmental impact assessment, community permitting, meeting gas flaring regulation targets, and maintaining records for regulatory audit. Resilience and data points. So there must be data points for us to refer to. Best practice models and case studies. Case studies, AKK pipeline is there. The regulatory overhaul, the PIA 2021, how legal reforms can improve investment, climate, and pipeline meet downstream regulations. And case C said integration of digital integrity and surveillance. So the sector must be regulated to drive confidence, down even to the community that are hosts. Like I asked a question, let me, Umugini, and if you put up your surveillance, put in everything, and they discover, a third-party interference, and the community say you can't go there, will you go there? So the confidence must be there. You must take the community to be part of, as number one key stakeholder. That's the only way, your technology will work. Roadmap for Nigerian recommendations, pipeline integrity. We must invest on integrity. Prioritizing high risk, routes, remote monitoring, pigging, the CP, twin pipeline when necessary. License, compliance, all compliance institutions must ensure that people comply with regulations. But compliance must, the penalty as well must be enforced. Like I say, if most of the companies prefer to flare their gas and pay the penalties rather than harnessing it, so we must up our game as regulators. Develop market mechanisms, enhance environmental performance, risk management, and security. Implementation timelines. So short term, we're looking at update, align regulatory licensing frameworks, urgent integrity, audits, pilots, digital surveillances. And between medium term, 3 to 5 years, we're looking at expand pipeline network to about 5,000, additional 5,000 kilometers of pipeline network, implement smart monitoring and operational, midstream gas funds. And on the long term, 5 to 10 years, we look at full network resilience, transition ready, infrastructure. We're looking at actually up to 10 kilometers of pipelines. If you look at Nigeria as a country, we need over 5 kilometers. So 5,000. No, we are looking at 10,000 in the next 10 years. 10 years from now, we need up to 10,000. So please, on this note, I encourage all of us, please, regulators that are here, let's take the message to the National Assembly. We hope that pipeline and key stakeholders, the operators, regulators, let's take it to National Assembly, ensure that all outdated laws, are revisited and ensure proper legislative framework, policy framework for the pipeline industry. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, that was very, very, very insightful. Engineer Aloho Amagada. Thank you. Once again, can you celebrate him? Thank you. His key takeaway: vandalism, theft, corrosion, and sabotage remain a major challenge to the pipeline integrity and security. And of course, addressing this risk through robust regulatory frameworks is essential to boost investor confidence and ensure the sustainability of our energy infrastructure. We'll switch gears immediately to the very next presentation, which is titled Managing Complex Projects, a case study of a typical pipeline project in the Gulf of Guinea. And to take us through this session, ladies and gentlemen, is a seasoned leader in project management and pipeline engineering. He is a senior project manager at Prime Sources Limited. Please help me welcome Engineer Olutosin Oyetola Jaoye, MNSCHE, CIPM, IAPM, IABFM, Senior Project Manager at Prime Sources Limited. Please keep celebrating him. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, and all protocols duly observed. It's going to be me taking you to class again this afternoon, if you don't mind, and to a bit liven up the environment. And I want us to maintain a free mind, and when there are times for questions or sessions for questions, we will definitely take that. I want to take us through a typical project, pipeline project, in the Gulf of Guinea. Between the last year and now, these were the things that happened, and a lot was learned. I will take us through what the magnitude of what to be done was, and the challenges that we faced in project managing, installing 16 pipelines within 1 year, and then the lessons we learned, and how we're able to wriggle out of those challenges. And now, as positioned us as PSL, a leader in pipeline construction, installation and construction and commission in Nigeria, into a new phase of handling complex projects. And it will be good to note that these were done and handled by local engineers and local expertise. Thank you. So if you don't mind, I go to the next slide. Pretty much, yeah. So I want to give us the project description in a short while. It was a drilling program where some existing rigid pipelines are being replaced with flexible pipelines. And then there are some rigid pipelines or a new introduction of these flexible pipelines in areas where we had no pipelines. Right, so these pipelines were to convey the gas, the oil, and the water. But most importantly, the 90% of these installations was to convey gas from one point to another point, and to aggregate the gas collected from the field, the Gulf of Guinea, into a common terminal for offshore export into refinery. So most IOCs these days, what they do in terms of efficiency in transportation and efficiency in technology is to transit from conventional rigid pipelines into flexibles. All right, so, and these flexibles are made in such a way to make the lifespan of that pipeline to last beyond 25 years. So with these, they are called maintenance free, and then it also helps them to adapt to movements subsea, because the more you have vibration in your pipeline infrastructure, the more you have threat to wear and tear. So naturally, the introduction of this flexible technology makes pipeline more robust in terms of their adaptability to topography, that's subsea topography and other movement of vibrations that we have subsea. So what we're saying in essence, there's a lot of transition offshore of rigid pipeline into flexible pipelines. And then one of the phases, apart from the project award, when the project was awarded, the first thing we had to do was to engineer, based on the parameters that were given from the detailed engineering, is to engineer and manufacture these pipelines or flexibles, and we had to go to the OEMs in Europe to work with them in their engineering office and provide a cutting-edge solution that would suit the need of the end user, right? So we could see that it took us more than 24 months, and then for shipping and transportation to Warri in Nigeria, right? So when in transportation, so one of the things that we also handled were heavy, we call it heavy lift, because each reel, the weight of the least weight we had to deal with was 192 tons. And we had 382, 295, 296 tons of these reels. And there were 34 reels or more that we had to manufacture and ship down to Nigeria, right? And it covers beyond, more in excess of 70 kilometers. So we had to also engage 3 heavy lift vessels that had to transport these reels from Europe down to Nigeria after they were being manufactured. And you could see how heavy they are. You could see the hold of the ship and the topside deck of the ship. And those are how, that's typically how we transported those reels, those pipelines wound or arranged in reels down to Nigeria from Europe. So what we did in excess was to go into engineering. And the first thing was to do our topside modification. Because if you're going to be changing existing rigid pipelines to flexibles, there has to be some modification topside to be able to receive this new introduction and to be able to transit it from flexibles, from polymer technology back to metal technology. Because most of the topside pipings still remained metallic, while the introduction of the pipeline also was just to solve those problems that we mentioned earlier. So typically, we had to do a lot of modification topsides, and it was not easy. Easy in the sense that we had to deal with 12 J-tubes. J-tubes are the risers through which the flexibles transit from the subsea to the topside deck of the platform. And we had to do artificial legs to swoop it, depending on the engineering requirements, platform by platform. What you see in this platform is different from that other platform. So you could see one of the, before we could do the transfer of the reels from the holding or the storage or the transportation vessel to the installation vessel, that had to be engineered because nothing should go wrong. And they had to be engineered because the vessels had to berth, right, had to be moored at the jetty in Warri, Delta State, Nigeria, and there has to be some sizing, some calculation, some designs to be able to accommodate the weight that we're going to be working with at the jetty. You could see typically from the heavy lift, we're now transferred into the installation vessel. I just want to show us those pictures and those engineering jargons that we did before we went to site. And typically, I had to also show us the 16 different pipelines that were handled. And those red arrows showed us another introduction of a challenge, which are shallow waters. Now, we know Nigerian waters mostly where we operate in the Gulf of Guinea. Most of them are from shallow to deep and to ultra deep. But we operated in what we call ultra shallow, 2.7 kilometers, 3.2 kilometers, 3.7 meters, 7 meters, 6 meters, 5 meters water depth. And that in itself, gave us a lot of challenges in terms of vessel selection, in terms of installation vessel selection, in terms of engineering methodology to be adopted, and in terms of, I just want to be sure I'm pressing this and I'm not going back. Right, so the shallowness of the terrain that we're going to be installing these flexibles presented their own challenges. So there were multiple vessel utilization or deployment because you had to get it right. You don't want to want to install new infrastructure and you are damaging existing subsea infrastructure. So it calls for a very intentional and detailed engineering just to show us how those lines were connected from one location to another, all the 16 of those lines, and how one installation reel was laid out, you know, with the reels and the installation equipment. You have the redrive system, we have the chute, we have the tensioners, and we have the reel themselves. Those reels are carrying the new pipes to be installed. So we see how that actual pipe was laid in the field. You could see that a production platform and the installation vessel was fully positioned, and that you can see our brothers here handling the pipes on the deck of that vessel and during the installation. So just to also show that everywhere we went, most of the time, those locations had what I call complex subsea infrastructure. We call it a cobweb arrangement of subsea assets in terms of cables, pipelines, whether buried or not buried. We had to do a diligent survey, bathymetric survey, to be able to detect what we had on the seabed, and that also helped us in choosing the kind of vessel to do the installation. So there were so many parameters that were taken into consideration. So talking about the challenges that we faced, right? I said broadening technical details and requirements. We call it ultra shallow. You have to install an 8-inch pipeline in a 2.7 meters water depth. That is you walking in a swimming pool, right? And you just have to be very, very, very circumspect with what you do. So we have to delineate or stratify the water depth into three: the ultra shallow, the shallow, and the deep shallow. The deep shallow was not more than 40 meters in terms of water depth, but the shallowest, which is the ultra shallow, was just only 2.7 meters. So we had to go through complex installation engineering based on all these parameters I mentioned earlier, and we had to select vessels all over the world that will meet with the requirement of the environment, that will meet with the requirement of the installation engineering without causing any damage, without causing any harm to assets, to facility, to people, to the environment. So we also have to do extra dynamic positioning assurance, extra layers, because when you bring a vessel to where you have existing subsea asset, you just want to be sure your vessel can hold position and can deliver without trouble. So we also had local storage, like I showed you. We had to store those heavy reels in terms of weight, and then we had to transfer them. Those were not easy. At some point, we thought we could do it mid-sea, but of course, by engaging with further risk assessment, we discovered that the water was not too calm, too friendly to do that. We had to go and use a calmer water to do those transfers, just to make sure people are safe and nothing went wrong. So we had to do a risk assessment. I showed us the complex subsea architecture. I also showed us that we had multiple pipelines, 16 pipelines in 29 locations. 29 locations. So we had to have jack-up barges or self-elevating work barges. We had several security vessels, providing security for the asset, for the people, and for the job that is being done. We also had limited offshore installation window. You just had 2 windows. If you miss the first November to May window, you know you have to go to another November, the next November window. So we took all this into consideration, and because of the shallowness and the ultra shallowness of the environment we were working with, it was muddy. The divers were not able to see anything, and of course our subsea survey equipment, we were not able to, in reality, detect things. So we had to do a lot of manual checking of things, using your blindfold mind to use your fingers to figure out what those things were. So then we had multiple stakeholders, we have multiple vendors. So the PSL approach is how we're able to effectively and optimally deliver this project. Right, and I want to share with us that in threefold: the planning and the strategy. What we did was we had to create a comprehensive project plan. Yeah, we had to outline clear goals, roles, and responsibilities. We had to ensure that we engage stakeholders actively. We have to engage our clients, we have to engage the communities, we have to engage our vendors, we have to engage everybody, because we did not want to take our eyes off the ball. We developed a strategic mindset that is prepared to adjust to strategies as needed. They were changing strategies, schedules were changing just to make sure we optimize. And during execution, we had to do a lot of monitoring of the execution. We just don't want to take our eyes off the ball, and we ensured quality control by putting or implementing a quality system that captured in reality what was going on with specification from engineering. And lastly on that, we did what we call adaptation and communication. We embrace adaptability by preparing to adjust to plans, especially unforeseen circumstances were coming on. So we knew everybody had to be at their A game, and then we had an in-house technology, project management technology, that took all the 29 locations in one screen, and you could see what is going on in terms of material supply, consumables, in terms of project execution, and the progress that was made. So with these three approaches, we were able to painstakingly monitor the progress and to deliver the project. So in my conclusion, so MC doesn't want us to conclude. Okay. In closing, total man hours expended was in the excess of 10,000, right? With 0 lost time incident or lost time injury, and with 0 fatalities and with 0 accidents. What helped us was, we think safety is first, safety is last, and safety is always. Thank you for listening. God bless you.
Sideways, and then go to the left, go to the right, left leg out, right leg out. Amazing. Give us a round of applause. And now sit down. Amazing. So while we are learning, we also have to give ourselves some stretches so that blood can flow well around our body. You know, the blood, the vessels are the pipelines in the body. You have to make sure it flows well as well while we learn pipelines. Sound, please confirm.
Thank you. So we're going to switch gears immediately. We have a couple of presentations. I kindly appeal to our speakers. You have been given 15 minutes to share your presentation. So whenever you see me come stand here, just know you have 5 minutes left. So we have to be very, very conscious of time so that we can go back home on time and come back for the dinner, which commences later together, later still at this venue. So ladies and gentlemen, switching gears, we move to the very next presentation. Because our speaker is a gentleman who would take us on the topic building capacity and efficiency in gas pipeline pre-commissioning. He's operations manager at BG Technical Limited, and he has deep experience in gas pipeline projects, pre-commissioning, and operational excellence. He has been instrumental in enhancing capacity and efficiency across complex pipeline systems. Please help me welcome the operations manager at BG Technical Limited, Ikenna Onyema, as he comes for his presentation on the theme. Please celebrate him. Building capacity and efficiency in gas pipelines pre-commissioning. Please celebrate Ikenga as he comes forward for his presentation. Okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I'll stand on the existing protocols. And given that the theme of this year's conference is building robust pipeline system for the decade of gas and beyond. So the title of my presentation is Building Capacity and Efficiency in Gas Pipeline Pre-Commissioning. So that is to say that you can't rule out pipeline pre-commissioning, gas pipeline pre-commissioning in building robust pipeline systems. Stop. Please, can you go back to the... Okay, all right. Okay, pre-commissioning, as the name implies, is activities that that is conducted on gas pipelines before you put the pipeline to use. In the course of this presentation, we're going to look at what it entails to build capacity and efficiency in pipeline pre-commissioning. So pipeline pre-commissioning ensures integrity. Of course, we have to clean the pipeline. We have to run intelligent peak in the pipeline to evaluate the wall thickness of the pipeline. Also, you have to do some other activities like drying, dewatering, drying, enacting, and packing of the pipeline with nitrogen gas. So all these are critical in pipeline pre-commissioning activities. Okay, these are pictures that will make you see some of the pipeline activities we're doing pre-commissioning of pipeline. This, as you can see, up there is a pig launcher trap, you know, and down there is when they are recovering pig. That was in one of the jobs we did in AKK project. So over here you have the key activities in pipeline pre-commissioning. You have to clean the line, run the mechanical peaks to clean the line and to gauge the line. You have to conduct hydro test in the pipeline to know what we call strength test, and also leak test the pipeline. When that is done, you have to dewater. For the gas pipeline, you have to dewater and dry before you introduce nitrogen gas. You can also pack it if need be, so that before you can actually commission the pipeline. Of course, there will be documentation and certification later on. Building capacity in gas pipeline pre-commissioning. There are three things that we need to look at here. Of course, you need to have trained personnel in this field. Like myself in BG Technical, I've been trained in the US, in Dubai, and also in other African countries on the job training as well. So you need to have that capacity. If you must have the capacity that we are talking about here, you need to have trained personnel. That's what we're talking about. Also, you need to have organizational structure. Of course, there should be a clear workflow setup, communication channel, reporting structures, and all that. And also, technical is the last, which is very, very vital. You need to have equipment, of course. If you don't have equipment, I don't know, it means no capacity. You can't even say you have a capability, if there is no equipment. Of course, there should be procedures and standards. So these three things are very important. They are very key when you talk about building capacity in gas pipeline pre-commissioning. So these are some of the pictures we have to show our capacity in gas pipeline pre-commissioning. You can see there, over there you have the first picture, tugging equipment. We also do flange management. You have over there compressors, high capacity compressors. We're talking about 1200 and 1350 CFM compressors. So without these compressors, you can't be able to pre-commissioning large diameter pipelines. It's not possible. So you need to have this. We have a whole lot of them in Port Harcourt. You can also visit our base in Port Harcourt. So you need to have high capacity compressors. Over there you have dew point meter. We use this to measure the dryness of the pipeline. So if you must dry the line properly, you must engage automated instruments like dew point meters. Over there you see pump. This is a high capacity pump, high volume, high flow rates. This pump can do about 50 to 60 barrels per minute at 100 bar. So you know what it means. So topography is not an issue for us. If there is high, crest, trough, we can calculate the static pressure, know the pressure to overcome. We can go ahead to do our pre-commissioning. It's not an issue for us. So this is a high capacity pump that you can engage in gas, larger diameters of pipeline. Okay, likewise this pump, over there is a nitrogen job that we did. That was for Renaissance. You have the cryogenic tank and you have the nitrogen converter. We can actually do this kind of job in gas pre-commissioning. These are the compressors I talked about. These are the other. Over there is the dryer and the aftercooler. These are equipments that we use for pipeline pre-commissioning. Then, the last but not the least is the nitrogen membrane. We have a whole lot of this equipment. It's a very expensive equipment. It can actually generate nitrogen on site. All you need to do is to power this unit with compressed air, and it actually generates the nitrogen that you want. The advantage of this over the pump I showed earlier is that with this, there's nothing like shortage of nitrogen, because we generate the nitrogen right there on site. So this is actually what we engaged. We engage it in annual projects for oil serve. We also engage this in NLNG, where we did a supply of nitrogen gas and air supply too. So this is very, very important that you have. If you must have capacity to do pre-commissioning, this is very, very important to have. So another thing you need to know is that BG Technical is into inline inspection. Yeah. So this, we are the owner of this tool, intelligent pigging tool. Of course, we don't need to bring it from outside. You don't need to fly it in. They are domiciled here in Port Harcourt, from 4 inches to about 42 inches. So these technical innovations are actually needed. They show that you have capacity, and those are the things that drive efficiency. So we have intelligent pig, we have real-time, equipment, data acquisition equipment like Keller gauges, recorder, and automated dryers. We also have this instrument actually give us the data that we make decision with. So it's very important you have it. If you must have capacity, build capacity in gas pipeline decommissioning. So although most of the times we have challenges like inadequate training, equipment failures and delays, environmental condition and all that, there are solutions. You can actually train personnel, like I said earlier said. You can also carry out preventive maintenance, and also safety is key to everything that we do. So you need to be safe. So when we talk about process optimization and best practices, very important also, you need to make sure you have standard procedures, you eliminate waste, applying lean principle, also conduct job planning, site visits, and all that. You know, with that, you can actually increase, optimize your process. So safety is very key, of course. You must risk assess whatever you do. You know, gas pre-commissioning is not like crude. You know, gas pipelines we know that they are high, they have very high water thickness. So the test pressures are very high. So the safety for this should be very high as well. There should be emergency response preparedness, having ambulance on site, make sure we have fire people on site as well. So for environmental impact through yes, we'll have people that are charged with this responsibility. We also make sure that all our standards comply with the API, ASME, and ISO standards. Okay, efficiency improvements. These are what we have done so far. You know, we have done them successfully because we have the capacity. Yes, we have the equipment. Yeah, we have trained people. We have the workflow. So this is what we have done, you know, with the capacity that we have. So I will conclude here, but we need to understand something that, like I said before, we need to train our personnel, have equipment, and have standardized workflow. If we don't have this, you can't say you have the capacity. And when you have the capacity, you can actually drive efficiency in this pre-commissioning of a gas pipeline. So I will make a recommendation here. So some of our companies that are into this field, it's very important. If we must build a robust pipeline, just like as we have here, for the decades of gas, we must make efforts to make sure that we invest in acquisition of modern equipment. Make sure we have trained personnel, you know, and all these will actually optimize pre-commissioning of a gas pipeline. Make us have capacity and also efficiency. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your time. God bless you.
That was really, really apt. Ladies and gentlemen, please, you should give another round of applause, please. Thank you. Investing in modern equipment, structured training would help optimize pre-commission of pipelines. We're listening to an amazing gentleman. Switch gears immediately to the very next speaker. Again, please kindly understand that you have just 15 minutes to speak. And whenever you see me standing here, you know you have 5 minutes left. Ladies and gentlemen, he is a visionary leader in pipeline operations and services. With extensive experience in delivering resilient pipeline solutions across West Africa, he brings a service provider's perspective on operational excellence, integrated management, and sustainable infrastructure development. He will be delivering a key session titled Enabling Resilient Pipeline Systems in West Africa, a service provider's perspective. Help me celebrate the Chief Operating Officer of Joplex Geotech, Engineer Akintunde Fadari. Please celebrate him as he comes for his 15 minutes presentation. Is that applause befitting of a man championing pipeline in West Africa?
Thank you. See if I can get this to work. All right, good afternoon. All right. So first and foremost, distinguished participant, thank you for the opportunity to stand before you this afternoon. I will flip through most of the presentations because they will amount to repetitions. So what I'll be talking about today is looking at a different approach, to how we can build a resilient pipeline systems. So next slide. So just before I go into the next slide, I have a bit of a video that I want to share. That video was shared on one of my platform, and a couple of people talk about it. What some of us will see here, can you help me play the video? Yeah. Apologies. Sorry. Okay, sorry. Please play it for me, sorry. All right, so what we see here, no, apologies. Was that from the video? Okay. So what we see here mean different things to each one of us, depending on where we're looking at it from. So initially, the video was all about the effort that Dangote is making, to get this product, to the different communities. And when some of us looked at it, I was saddened, because, at this time and age, this is what we have to do, to get those refined products, to different part of the country. You can see how narrow those roads are. And those are one of our premium roads in Lagos. Half of it is taken up by trucks. Dangote is doing what he has to do because those refined products need to move. However, what we're dealing with is a concern in this time and age. We're building more refineries, but how do we get that product, to the end users? So, it's definitely not the way to go, but that is where we are today in Nigeria. Now, I personally want to thank the organizers of this event because it's forward-thinking. We're not just looking at the problem that we've got with pipelines, our inability to get those products, to put them on the road, on the pipe, rather we put them on the road. However, with the initiatives of the organizers of this event, we're actually expected to be looking far into the future. So my presentation is going to be forward-looking, but we cannot, neglect the fact that we're not even where we are supposed to be as a nation, and that really called for a lot of actions. So we're looking at a decade of gas. What are the contexts? What are the opportunities? The truth is that when we're talking of gas, we're talking of a global energy transitions. We're talking of the need for massive infrastructures. We're talking of infrastructures that will span beyond Nigeria and even across other countries. We're talking of how do we even get ready to start thinking of how do we transport hydrogen and CO2. And those are even more challenging to transport. We cannot transport petroleum. What are we going to do when we start having how to produce hydrogens and CO2? And that really called for, some challenge, some thinking to see how are we going to not only bridge the gap,
but also prepare for the future. What we see is that the train is moving already. Looking at what we produce in terms of gas in 2023, 2024, and 2025, that July this year, we'll see a 10% roughly year-on-year growth in terms of our gas output, which we have to. And what that means is that we're already keying into gas productions and the need to maximize and get the best out of it. It's not a coincidence. It's basically as a result of some efforts that has been made by plan and a lot of stakeholders that are involved in our pipelines and brainstorming and see how we can move things forward. First and foremost, we can look at the NUPRC decarbonizations framework. That, for me, is a bold initiative which NPRC has taken and which is essential if you have to invite and make it enticing for private investors. We cannot continue to deal with our methane the way we used to. And a recent publication reveals that permits will actually be tied to decarbonization, which is good. What does that mean for us as service providers? It means that we start thinking of how we manage our methanes, how do we track them, and opportunities that are going to come out of it. In addition, we have the regulatory framework that is driving leak detection as well, which is going to create a lot of opportunities for those of us that are into pipelines and businesses. So a lot of opportunities coming. If we look at the gas outlook, I talked about it. We already, it's inevitable. The gas is basically the bridge fuel between oil and renewable. So we just have to key into it. As an organization, as a team, as a group of intellectuals, we need to seriously start thinking of how do we transport, the hydrogens when we start producing them. And that is talking about near future. We should also look at what is happening with the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline. This is an indication of serious commitments on global perspective. $25 billion US, that's a lot. 6,000 to 8,000 kilometers of pipeline, that is massive. The efforts that has been put into this include the appointment of companies to actually manage this project. That means that this project has come to stay. What is the implication for us in Nigeria? When I looked at that, what I say is, we're going to go into headlines again. Because the pipelines that will feed Europe, that will go through Morocco, I hope they will not be vandalized in Nigeria. And then we go into headlines. So we need to be aware that just as we're a regional force, we need to basically take our pipeline much more seriously. It's not going to be business as usual. We have the resources, we can afford to lock them in, but we cannot afford to be the ones that is going to hinder those pipes from producing and achieving the objectives that has been put in place. So a lot of big plans, and we need to key into it. What are some of the challenges? Corrosion, aging infrastructures. The last speaker talked about trust for one another. It's a lot easier for Joples to be thinking of building its pipeline, rather than integrating with the existing system, because there's no trust. In the future that we're looking at, is not going to be sustainable. We can't even do it. We can't work in silos. So there's a need for us to come together and see how we can address these challenges. And so that brings me to the topic, which is how do we learn from the upstream, what we're doing upstream, and bring it into our pipelines. Joples is a company that has grown from upstream opportunities, and we see that how things are done there are slightly different. There is a lot of predictive maintenance. We don't wait till something gets damaged before we start thinking of fixing it. We use quite a lot of data in what we do, and it's high time that we start doing that and doing that with our pipeline as well. Essentially because this is the lifeline of our nation, but most importantly, we're talking of regional collaborations. So the future, the prospect of other nations are going to be in our hand, and we have to basically protect and maintain it. What are some of the innovations? Drone, we talked about it. As it is, it's still very difficult to fly drone to survey those pipelines. It's inevitable, we have to do it. When we're talking of 6,000 kilometers, it's not something that we can use manual method to inspect. We need to deploy data innovations for our pipeline inspections and monitoring. The other thing is the environment. We need an enabling environment. The last speaker talked about policies, collaboration, and sustainability, and this is essential. It's essential because for the future, it's not just going to be about Nigeria. We can afford to buy trucks, to move those products. Okay, thank you. So I'm almost done. However, we need serious collaborations in terms of harmonizing our policies between countries, such that when we get there, we can effectively, manage this investment that will be put in place. We need private-public partnership. We need to incentivize our local team that are coming up with ideas in terms of fabrications and inspections. And this is key because the future that we're looking at a future where those pipes is not enough to have them. They need to be inspected, they need to be maintained on time, and they cannot afford to have downtime. I'm not going to spend much about Joples. The point there is that as an organization, we need to learn from what we're doing upstream, and we need to bring it into our pipeline business. So what are the recommendations and call to actions? It's a call to actions to every one of us. As an operator, we need to adapt data twin technologies in our integrity management. We need to use data as operators to make sure that we optimize and get the best out of these gas infrastructures. Service companies, it's that time we start thinking of how are we going to be inspecting those pipes when they are put in place. And the standard should not be just for petroleum products. We should be thinking about CO2 and hydrogen because that is what we're going to be moving in the future to come. As regulators, we need a lot from our regulators. These are massive investments. Approvals need to be simplified. As much as possible, we need to harmonize the standard across the board. Finance is key, and that is king as well. We will struggle to have a resilient pipeline if we continue to build them in silos. If we continue to rely on just what Dangote can do, and then what Joples can do, and what Tomogene can do. We need to come together and make sure that we can have a blended finance system for this system. Most importantly, communities. We need to move from that silos. Our communities need to take charge of maintenance of these facilities. Our communities need to look at infrastructure, security infrastructures. If we can effectively get each community to protect those pipes that pass through each of their communities, that's half of our problem solved. And it's possible with the effort that we are making. So in conclusions, we need to see that the gas pipeline that we are building is not just to carry the gas and the product, but this is talking about energy securities, we're talking about regional unities, and we're talking about sustainable prosperity for generations to come. So thank you for your time. Thank you to the leadership of Plan for putting this together. And I'd like to say that the conversation needs to continue. It's not going to end here. Thanks again, and I appreciate the time.
Please celebrate our Kitundu Fadare, the Chief Operating Officer of Droplex Engineering, for that very brave and interesting presentation on enabling a resilient pipeline infrastructure for West Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, a very quick announcement. After this presentation you have now, our VIPs in front will lead us to go have a tour of the exhibition. Once we are done with the tour of the exhibition, we head for lunch. Please ensure that you come back in 30 minutes. Lunch is to last for just 30 minutes. So please, the VIPs, you follow them. Everybody will go for the exhibition. We see what we have over there at the exhibition stands, and then we head over for lunch. And in 30 minutes, when you're done with lunch, you come back here and we do the 2 panel sessions and the 2 presentations. So we have just 2 panel sessions and 2 presentations, and we are done for today. Then we come back in the evening for dinner. Ladies and gentlemen, the very next speaker is a renowned expert in pipeline engineering and corrosion management, an associate professor of corrosion engineering, and of course the program director and the chair of the technical committee of this conference. He will deliver a key address titled Technical Reclassification of Gas Flaring as Gas Wastage for Environmental Degradation to Enhance Multi-Dimensional Mitigation Strategies. Please help me welcome Engineer Dr. Vincent Izionwaru as he takes over the stage for his presentation.
Good afternoon all. When you heard that title, I am sure you were wondering, what could this be all about? Well, I would want to share the abstract of this presentation with you, and I've highlighted just a few words because of time. You would notice that, if you can go to the abstract please, you would notice that the World Bank Group's Zero Routine Flaring Initiative aims at ending gas flaring by 2030. But unfortunately, by 2024, 6 years before 2030, gas flaring increased with high numbers. That is 17 years after they had, the situation was lesser than it was in 2024. So this presentation is targeted at helping us sell the idea, the emotional idea of reclassifying that expression, gas flaring. Let me ask you, when you hear gas flaring, does it in any way tell you of the dangers of gas flaring? When you hear the word, the expression gas flaring, do you immediately think of the dangers? It is unlikely. You see it as something very natural and fanciful. Well, I want to share a picture from Eloho's presentation, Engineer Eloho's presentation. I have cited you properly, sir. He's not here. Okay, that picture, in addition to my original picture, gives you the impression of what is happening with regards to gas flaring. So when we talk about gas flaring, if this picture doesn't come to your mind, please, going forward, just picture this scenario, that we are cooking the earth. We are cooking the atmosphere. We are cooking the ozone layer. So in this presentation, we will focus on extent of gas flaring, flared gas composition, associated environmental challenges, economic wastage of gas flaring, solution to gas flaring, which includes flare gas recovery system and technical reclassification of the expression gas flaring. Now, what is the extent of gas flaring? I would use the next chart. Please, move forward. But before we get to, okay, you can stop here. What you see there is the quantity of gas flared in Nigeria. 7% of the 1.8 million scoff of gas produced this year so far has been flared. 7% of them has been flared. That's about 150,000 gas or scoff of gas. Now, if you count back since we started flaring gas and then sum up
the sum total of gas flared, that is gas burnt, producing carbon dioxide and methane, you can quantify it. So that is Nigeria. Now let's progress to see the world. Please go to the world. Yes, so this chart you're seeing here shows you what has happened in about 9 countries that flare gas the most. You would notice the rise, the steep rise from sometime in 2007 to 2023 and 2024. That's the 70 years difference and the amount of gas that was flared or burnt, sometimes vented. This report is, like the reporter said, not very reliable because it is dependent on satellite view and then record from countries that cannot be trusted. Those were the expressions of the reporters, World Bank. So that gives you an idea of what we see here is not the actual situation, but that gives us an impression of what is happening. Now, if you go to the next chart, please, the next chart. There you see the top 9 countries, and do you know what? Nigeria is there. Did you notice it? Yes, we are amongst the topmost countries, 1 to 9, that flare gas the most in the world. And coincidentally, these countries belong to the over 150, about 150 countries that signed the contract that gas flaring will stop by 2030. So that's what happens. That's the extent. Now, what is the composition of this gas flared to help us appreciate the danger, just in case we are not aware? But I'm sure as experts in this field, we should know that natural gas contains methane, about 90%, and then CO2, and a few other gases like nitrogen and others. Now, both methane and CO2 are greenhouse gases that trap heat in the ozone layer and increase the heat level on Earth. There is a battle to reduce the amount of heat on Earth. So that battle is on. If you can progress to the next chart, please. Just go to the next chart. Go on. Again, okay. Then the next. Okay, so why do we say, what's the justification to end gas flaring? The associated environmental challenges of gas flaring and economic waste. So environmental challenge and economic waste, 2 things that stand out as to why the effort is made to stop gas flaring. How much is lost? Go to the next chart, please, the next slide. Associated gas loss in 2024 is responsible for emission of 389 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. So that gives you the impression of what happens in the ozone layer, the level of destruction going on. And this makes it difficult for the world to achieve retaining increase in heat level on Earth to less than 2 degrees centigrade. The desire is 1.5, but they are struggling with even retaining it at 2 degrees centigrade. Now, I tell you something. During the COVID-19 era, Mumbai, which is reported as the most polluted environment on Earth, saw a drastic reduction in the level of pollution in that city. So that's to show you that if we work hard at reducing pollution like gas flaring, we'll succeed in helping ourselves. Now, what are the other environmental associated challenges? The next slide, please. You would see acid rain, human health. Acid rain does not care who will be affected. If you are a big guy that moves from SUV to Hummer Jeep or whatever, if you are going to catch up a flight and there is a rainfall, parts of the rain will touch you somehow. So you can't say you are free from acid rain. The air we breathe, you can't filter it if you move around. So if you're a regulator, if you're an industry practitioner, whichever category you find yourself, it is emotional that you should think about it. That no matter who you are exposed to the environmental conditions that affect our health because we flare gases. Go to the next slide, please. Go to the next slide. For those who have jackpot to America, those who have jackpot to Canada, Germany, UK, is there any place on earth where there is no flooding? The story is there is an escalation of flooding from one city to the other. So you see the list there. So you can pick the one that suits the community where you find yourself. Gas flaring is contributing to this. So anytime you hear the word gas flaring, fight it, because this is what is happening. We have talked about the economic wastage, but just go to the next slide. Let's share it again. Look at what is happening. In 2024, the gas lost in flares was almost equivalent to the total annual gas consumption in Africa. Massive, is it not? Mind-blowing and staggering. Painfully so. 162 billion cubic meters of gas. Madness. This volume of gas equates to an estimated $63 billion calculated using European Union import gas prices in 2024. The value of the wasted gas is estimated at between 19 to 63 billion respectively, but something is interesting. This represents over half of the approximately $70 billion upfront spending needed to achieve the flaring reductions. So if we move the money spent wasted burning gas into stopping it, this is what will happen. But rather than stop gas flaring, we decide to waste the money. All right, and the factors are there. We will share the slide for you to see later. The next slide, please. The factors that contribute to all of this is there. So, give and take. Let me, like I said, I want to quickly end up. What is the solution to gas flaring? Go to the next slide or so. Gas collection and compression, electricity generation and gas to liquid. All of these can be done in conjunction with eco-developmentalism that is practiced in Asia. So while implementing your management style of your process systems, remember to include the ecosystem in your management style. So clearly we have seen why we should stop gas flaring. But let me add this to it. Please go to the next slide. We are almost closing. The next slide. Again. Again. Good. So why should we end it? Why should we reclassify? Sorry. Why should we change the expression gas flaring? Studies show that words can neutralize actions. I published an article last year, and several other authors have. Words can misrepresent facts and the emotions they carry to the general public. For instance, Sarah, 2021, used a simple expression. The military and police will always use the euphemism or euphemistic expressions such as collateral damage and a friendly fire. Tell me, when you hear there was collateral damage in an encounter, what comes to your mind? Everybody that hears it says collateral damage. Okay, collateral damage. Maybe building. It could be that 1,500 persons were killed. For instance, they say 120 persons suffered fatality. The person that hears that expression, suffered fatality, what comes to your mind is, okay, fatality, fatality. But if they say 150 persons died, you'll be shocked. Is that also? When you hear died, you'll be shocked. But if you hear fatality, you are relaxed. That is what happens to your emotions because of use of words. So we are seeking, please go to the next page. We are driving this to the world, and this is the third place we are discussing this. We are seeking to reclassify gas flaring as gas wastage for environmental degradation, GWED. So every operator, every regulator, every person who wants to talk about burning of gas should say gas wastage for environmental degradation. We want to prepare a process line to ensure there is no gas wastage for environmental degradation. We want to prevent gas wastage for environmental degradation. So each time we use this expression, the emotion will be there. Is it not? The emotion will be there. So let's drive it. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Professor Vincent, for that very passionate, complex topic. A round of applause for Megan once again, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellencies, like I had explained earlier on, we are going to be going for the exhibition tour. So please, our VIPs, Plan President, sir, you will lead us. President of Plan, sir, you're going to lead us to the exhibition tour. Please, all the VIPs, please kindly join the Plan President. And then all of the delegates, please, we would like you to go behind the Plan President as he visits the tour, and you can network there. Immediately after the tour at the exhibition stands, you are heading over for lunch. The ushers will be there to guide you to where we are having lunch. Please, my time is 2:58 p.m. Let's say 3 p.m. I would like us to be here by 3:30 p.m. Please ensure you're back on your seats by 3:30 p.m. so that in an hour we'll be done with the panel session. I'm glad to announce that we are going to collapse the two panel sessions into one panel session. We are collapsing the two panel sessions into one panel session because of coming back for dinner. So please enjoy the exhibition, then come back by 3:30 so that we do two presentations, one panel session, question and answers, and we are done for today. Thank you very much. My name is Ofofonono Akpan. My pleasure it is to serve as your MC and Director of Programs at events like this. Bye for now.